In this episode of Clubhouse Chronicles, we will be taking a deep dive into: is black masculinity on a decline?
Hmm. Let's talk about it. What's going on, you bug? Roro, come on up. Is black manhood on the decline? Are we down bad? So
I'm
quick,
gonna
bro.
tread lightly today, Curtis. Good evening, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Let's talk about it. I'm
Been
just
a,
curious.
it's it's so funny. I don't sometimes things are so serendipitous because I did mention this in a private conversation with a friend because I'll share, because there was an instance when it's like, oh, you need to teach me. I said, first of all, sir, you don't respect the things that I'm saying. So therefore, there's documentaries, there's books, there's the internet where you can acquire this information because I've made a decision that I would not be raising black men.
What? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let's talk, June. Let's talk. This is a
Oh
quick.
man,
Yeah.
am I gonna be hot
This is a,
today? Oh God, I'm treading lightly on
no,
these days.
no. This ain't gonna be an attack. This is an honest.
Not by
This
you.
is.
I know you good people. I don't know about who else in the
Listen, this is, trust me, this
room.
is,
Yeah, what's
we,
up?
yeah, it's a, listen, it's a safe space. We can debate. It's all good, right?
Sure,
That's how we can learn and grow,
absolutely.
right?
I'm
So,
glad.
how do you, so let's just answer the topic first, right? Do you believe black manhood is on the decline? Like, do you, like, when you look at the landscape of black men in general, like, what do you see? Do you see good things, bad things, a little of both? Is it more bad? Is it more good? Like, what are you saying?
I mean, from my perspective and my experiences, I feel like black men are doing better. They're holding, from what I see with my like in my life, what I hang around, right? I know there's other people have other experiences, but I see a lot of building happening. But I'm not going to discount the negative experiences as well. But I just don't. I'm just not around that. But so I think it's just a mixture of both. I think it also depends on the environment you choose to be in. You can always change your environment. So I see more building happening, more, that's what I see, but that's what I choose to be around. So
Okay, so let's kind of unpack that. That's good. What's the, if you could sum it up to like a couple of words, right? Because it sounds like for the most part, you have like positive, um you have like a positive experience. What if you could sum it up into like a couple of words, like what are some common things that you see that's like, oh, I like this is what I see, and I like this and I like this, like what could you narrow that down to like a couple of words?
it's a tough one, Curtis.
Good.
Down to a few words. I don't know. I don't know. This business comes to mind. I know it sounds silly, but business comes to mind. Um, I don't know. I just feel a little. I'm really leaning into the positive train today because I think of I just think about business, family, and loyalty. But that's with the men that I know.
Okay. No, that's cool. And that is perfectly fine. That's good. So it sounds like for the most part you're seeing family, you're seeing um you're seeing like business, which is great. Do you think that is do you think that's more of the norm? Let's say outside your circles, right? Like what do you see what do you
Uh-oh.
see? No, no. What do you see outside your circles? What do you what do you see?
I see a lot of poop and piss outside, but I don't look
Oh,
at it.
okay.
Again, it's so important to sometimes create a bubble, but I just think I still hold true to that. Like, I think a lot of people still believe in the business, family, and loyalty because I people may go about it in a way that I don't necessarily agree with. But one thing I have noticed more times than not that those are the three things that kind of stand out. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It does. I'm gonna ping some more people. I
Mhm.
just got a question. This is just a question that I thought of.
Okay.
Um, yeah, this is just a question I thought of this evening. Like, just kind of, I want to hear, want to hear from the men too, and
Was there a
I guess the other
catalyst?
one.
Oh, sorry to interrupt.
If there was like a catalyst, you
Yeah,
said?
was there a catalyst of what caused the interest or having the topic today?
I don't know. I just I guess I'm just kind of observing the app quite a bit, and I'm just seeing these different rooms and these different conversations, and I'm just kind of like, I don't know. It's just been on my heart lately. Like, what's up with the fellas, man? Like, what's really good? You know what I mean? Is like, are we all right? Are we doing all right? Are we not doing all right? Like what's going on? You know what I mean? And I've heard a lot of theories on this. Is that,
Mhm,
black men are one of the biggest things that I've heard that has really made me think is this whole white supremacy perspective, where basically, to sum it up, I've heard this quite a bit on this app that like white supremacy has kind of stripped black manhood away. Like black men, we can't reach that level of excellence because of white supremacy. Like
mhm,
white supremacy has basically castrated us as a whole.
mhm,
And that is something that I constantly think about.
mhm,
And I'm like, it's that really true? And I would say in a lot of ways it is.
mhm,
However, I do kind of see how, as men, we can be a bit distracted.
mhm,
And I guess my position is, as a man, I can't afford, and I'm guilty of this, I can't afford to be distracted. Like, I can't afford to just be on bullshit all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta focus up because I'm in a space where I have, on a high probability, high possibility, I have a lot of enemies, and I'm tailing that. I'm tailoring that towards white supremacy, right?
mhm,
So if white supremacy is my enemy, and it's a big enemy, it's a very powerful enemy, I cannot afford to like be defenseless and waste time. And
mhm.
does that make sense? Like
That
I
makes sense.
if yeah, you know what I mean?
I
Like
have
I
two
can't.
questions.
Go
Mhm.
ahead.
Sorry to
You say you
interrupt.
got a question?
I
No,
have
no,
two
no.
questions
But that's
now.
how I
It
that's
was
how I
one, but
feel.
then you brought up the enemy of white supremacy. So now I have a second question. So the first question is when you say excellence, right? I would say, and this is I really do believe every man is gonna have their own answer, especially because what defines a man is him defining his morals and principles, not me or anyone else, right? So how would you define excellence, right? Is it going to be I guess I'll leave it open ended there. And then the second question um is white supremacy the only enemy you're thinking of?
Mm, that's
Mm,
a good question. Um, So let me answer the first part. I think excellence for me is highly proficient in education, highly proficient in your health, highly proficient in, intrinsic values, highly proficient in relationship building, results, productivity, wealth development, um, wisdom, like you hold yourself to a high standard and you perform, at the best of your ability to that standard. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? Like I think that is like excellence. And even in faith too, because I'm very, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer. So even there's a piece to that too, excellence in your spirituality, your faith, your principles, whatever you believe. I mean, for me as a believer, that's what that is for me. But,
Hmm.
I think men who subscribe to something bigger than themselves,
Hmm.
um, I think that's a good start,
Hmm.
right? Personally. Now, the other enemy piece, I think that's where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's wise and this is for black men, I don't know if it's
Mhm.
wise for black men to position black women as an enemy versus a disconnected ally. Because
Mm.
there's a difference. There's a
Mhm.
difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a disconnected ally, that tells me that we could do some work. There may be some miscommunication. There could be some, lack of understanding. I think you could work through that.
Mhm.
But if I'm treating black women as my enemy,
Mhm.
that's a problem. That's a problem.
So
And I
I
don't, does that make sense?
no, that makes sense to me. I wanna see if I can try and offer a perspective of why I asked the question in regards to is that the biggest enemy, right? Because I'll say this, it does seem like a bit of a distract, even though it's a true, it isn't, it's not a debate on um it being the biggest enemy. But when I hear the biggest enemy, what I think of is discounting that there's still other things to worry about. Like betrayal can happen in the home. Yes, but betrayal can happen within friend groups, things
Sure.
of that nature. I'll never forget, a friend told me one time, she's like, if you when you do have people around you and you get that gun, the people that really need to see you clean that gun are the people that are close to you. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes I feel like we get
Mm,
distracted by the people who don't even really see our movements, right? Don't even know we exist yet. But we're forgetting about managing those around us. Not to say that people around us are our enemy, but there's a way that we manage the people that we already know, that are already in our communities as well. Because and not all skin folk is kinfolk, right? And also, I'm also, and for those in the room, I am Nigerian American, so there's certain perspective that I may be lacking or not have enough knowledge on, or even or I may share something outside. And when I think about Nigeria, like I'm Nigerian, but there's so many different tribes, there's so many, but they're not all the same. They're not my people, like you know what I mean. So it's just so many different things when it comes to collective as well. When I think about that, so yeah.
yeah, no, I think that is that's true, and I've heard on this app that s- and this is true, like you could be in proximity to folks who can possibly potentially be your biggest enemies. Um and they usually say the ones that are closest to you are the ones that can hurt you the most and hurt you the deepest. So I understand that. I get that. Um, is white supremacy an enemy? Absolutely. But then if if there are folks that look like me that are my enemy, I think we got to unpack that too. Like, why does that? You know what I mean? Like, if people that look like me are, you know what I mean? Like, they're out for my blood. I mean, let's just keep it real, man. Like, like we look at this app.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the violence and bullshit and the content, if you call it that, has been done by each other. Like
Correct.
we,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like we
Hmm.
tear each other down. So I don't know if we're willing to have that painful and honest conversation,
Mm.
because what I've also have realized with this app is that this app is heavy on the escapism for a lot of folks. Like heavy.
Hmm.
Like heavy. So I'm just I made this room because it's just an observation in terms of manhood. You know, how do we how do we define manhood as black men? Number one. Number two, is there like the standard? Like, is there this like, okay, this is what black, like there's like a universal kind of agreement. So hey, this is what we all agree as men. This is what this is the standard for manhood. Like family, faith, wealth, health, prosperity. You know what I mean? Like kind of like this constitution, if you will, this declaration. And I don't know if we know what that is. I don't know if we are able to subscribe to what those sets of principles and values are. I don't know.
So I have a
I don't
question
even know
about
if
that
we
then.
want to.
So I
Yeah,
have a
go ahead.
question about that because I still struggle with the collective piece of it because I really, even though I think it's important to consider the collective piece of it, right? Because bigger than ourselves. But also, my question is, wouldn't it be that said man just make a decision and say, these are the morals and values that I want to encompass in my life, and this is what I want to execute in my life, and exude that, and then just build that tribe and family around it and that community around it of like-minded, like valued people and move in that way? Does it need to start from the top bottom or should it start from the bottom top?
Hmm, that's a good question. I think self-awareness is a starting point to that. I think if more men kind of do like a personal audit, a personal like inventory on the self, like and to me what that comprise of is, our decisions, like what we've done, even on a daily level, like we go through our day and then we end our day with this kind of reflection period. Like we spend maybe about an hour or so, let's say an hour, right? And then you spend some time just kind of listing out all the things you've done for that day and say, okay, I did this, I did that, I worked, I spoke to these folks, I did this. Now I know, and the funny thing about it is that people do that. Like they call it journaling. Other people call it, you know, kind of like a benchmarking. Like there's different words for it, but basically, it's like kind of like this personal tracking system. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of list out your activity through the day, and then you see, okay, where can I improve? Where can I be better and do better? You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I think that could be a good start, but uh,
I think stoicism is a good because I know stoicism they use journal twice a day, things of that nature, and you pulse check what you've done, how you feel, things of that nature, and challenges of the day, areas of opportunity of the day. Pardon me. I think that's a great first step. Um, but at the same time, it's a matter of like okay, I mean, this may sound silly, but I mean, do you check in with your inner child?
I What does that mean?
So, and this is maybe uh, it could be mean something else, but at least to me, checking in with your spirit or the child within you and say how are you feeling today. You know what I mean? Um, so I check in with myself just as an individual, like checking with myself to see how I'm doing, or or say like, yo, like we got to keep pushing. Like I know you're tired, but we got to keep pushing, things like that. And I think the inner child thing came from shadow work. I could be mistaken, but I think it ties into what you were talking about, like the self-reflection, but just a kind of a deeper. I may have to look up the actual definition. I'm sorry, I'm not really an expert in that and articulating that piece, but checking in with your inner child and seeing how they're doing and seeing like, and when it comes to making sure you're the moves that you're making, like would I guess I could put it this way: would your younger self be okay? Will be proud of what you're doing, right? Checking with the child, when you're a kid, you know, would your younger self be proud of what you're doing right now?
That's an interesting take. That's interesting. Uh, oh, sometimes you get caught up in the conversation. What's up, y'all? Pseudo, if you're there, what are your thoughts? Is black men or black manhood on the decline? Um, what's your thoughts, folks? I'm gonna ping some more folks in the room. I just wanted to have like a quick conversation, just kind of something on my mind, something I've been reflecting on for a little bit. But if you're there, pseudo, feel free to chime in.
I mean, yeah, I think it's on the decline to an extent. I think more so, I classify it as a decline. I think it's more of a cultural shift or I would say revolution in which, the weakening of men, lowering of the standards and expectations, and as a result, you tend to raise weaker men. And so, yes, to that extent, I think it's on the decline because,
You,
no one wants to challenge boys or hold them to high standards because of, I guess, the difficulties and the shifting or changing environment too, physical, labor and activities have less utility in such a civilized society, so much so that, you know, it's become more optional than it has ever been.
okay. Now, I appreciate that. Alex, good evening. How are you? What's your thoughts on the topic?
Yeah, guys, peace, peace. Um, I think it's a bit tricky when we say black manhood. I'm not sure where the foundation of black manhood starts. I don't know if we're speaking about, American blacks or just the black race and our manhood. If we're speaking about just American blacks, then we have to start with our origins and where we came from and how we got here. And the reality is that everything that we do is a learned behavior. We had to learn it from the people like who were in charge of us. Our actions, our minds, our educational systems, our spirituality is not, you know, it's not our unique separate traditions or cultural customs. It's all what we learn. So we never had our own unique black manhood. It never existed. It was always whatever it meant to be an American man is what we just kind of like aim for. So we can't keep separating ourselves with this word black from, like what is always meant to be American because we've just been subject to like whatever, an American did is what we did. or strive to do. But more importantly, the reality is that we all started from zero in this country. We didn't start from families in Europe who have been doing their thing for hundreds of years in Europe. They've had universities over there. They've been reading and writing. They've had a solid, religious system in place, and they consciously chose to come to America, and they brought those cultures and those values and customs with them here, and just kept going forward with that. For us, we've never had a chance to do that in this country. We couldn't bring things over here from Africa, that even survived. So we started from nothing. The majority of us couldn't read or write in English. We didn't have any kind of European education. So where we are now compared to where we were is always going up. We have more degrees. We have more entrepreneurs, more businesses, more families, more children, more everything. I mean, than what we always had. So we have to look at it in a positive way. How can something how can something be on a decline if it was never up in the first place? It's always been at the bottom, going up. So that's just the
What,
reality.
why do you say we have to look at it in a positive way? That seems like a limiting,
Because we
you
start,
know,
yeah,
go ahead.
because we started from zero. So it means that we started from the bottom. So like we can't decline from already being at the bottom. We can only go up, and that's the reality of what we've been doing. Now, if you want to hyper focus on black people who are not doing well, and if you want to make that the image of black people or black manhood, if you want to hyper focus on the black men who are doing crappy and make that the pedestal, like I mean, of a black man, then I will say that you're no different than the white races who do the same thing.
I have a question,
Well,
Alex. How do you define black manhood?
There's no such thing as black manhood. It's just manhood in general. It's like whatever. If a man
Mhm,
represents masculinity, and masculinity only exists because of femininity,
mhm.
so therefore it's going to be the opposite of femininity. So
So,
if a female is supposed to be like soft and nurturing, a man is supposed to be hard. If a woman is supposed to follow, a man is supposed to lead.
Interesting. Go ahead, Suda. I got a question. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I was just gonna say this kind of is similar to when I was talking about an inability to hold standards or, set standards which men have to live up to. I think this would be an example. I think that you are the sum of your expectations in many ways. So if you're not expected to be much and you're celebrated for any or, little progress, uh, it's unlikely that you will, progress further than the the pressure from which you are conditioned in.
But every single civilization praises their progress.
Right, but they also have the ability to criticize it as well. You don't say you have to look at it in a positive way because then you never have a fair or just estimate of your progress. If you only look at things through the positive lens and not the negative or the critical lens, then how do you know whether or not you're doing well or not? How do you have judiciousness if you can only see the positive in a thing?
Well, I think the reality is that black people in this country are highly criticized by everyone and themselves. We see it every day on media. We see it on social media. We see that black people themselves are highly critical of each other.
And I'm assuming,
We're not used to positivity. That's why when I mentioned positive. You said, well, why? Why look at positive? And that's the issue that we have as a
Specifically, you
people is
said you have to,
we're,
and I was only addressing the have because I think that when you have to, you create a limitation on your perspective, and that
no,
does
no,
you.
no. It's complete opposite. Consider raising a child. Consider coaching a team. Everyone knows that you need way more positive reinforcement than you need criticism. Everyone knows that too much criticism, constructive or not, discourages anyone from progressing. It's just facts and human nature. You don't see no other group of people around the world in their nation constantly bombarding their citizens with negative images of themselves. You won't see in China Chinese media constantly bombarding Chinese people with negative images of themselves and being critical of themselves. You won't see that nowhere in any nation except for America. Why is
Agreed.
that? So this criticism that like you're speaking of is something that we don't need anymore. We need to start, inserting positivity into our people, man. Unless we want to die off, man, from so much negative negative critique. It's killing us, man.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think I agree that I'm a proponent for positive reinforcement. I'm a proponent for, men being encouraged and empowered. My question to the room is, I've heard, and Junebug shared this too, about this aspect of stoicism. There was a room, I think I did, either I did it or Dante did it, but it was, is stoicism a benefit? Basically, the title was, is black men being stoic, is that a benefit or is it like a issue? And it was a mixed response. Some people said it is an issue, others said it's not. Some said that black men need to be more stoic. Um, there were black men that also opposed being emotionally available, right? Meaning that men should not be emotionally available, especially when it comes to like women. And I've heard men said that in the space. Like I was like, really? So how do you meet your lady when she's kind of distraught? Like if she needs somebody to talk to, or and they need to vent, or they need some sort of support or nurturing or some encouragement, how can you not exude some sort of emotion, some compassion, care? So when I heard that, I was just like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't know, man. Like, is that, shouldn't black men be more stoic? Like, is that an answer? Like, I don't know.
Uh, when I know stoicism is seen as a way of life, I think when it comes to well, I mean, it's definitely the endurance of pain or hardship without the display of feeling and without complaint. I think these things can be used as tools when it comes to when I think of stoicism, I think about like going to work, being out there. In regards to a family, I mean, I think you do have to be emotionally available, but that's just my opinion at that point. Some people think differently about that. So.
I don't understand which black people are we talking about? Which black men are we talking about, guys? I'm very much confused. I mean, majority of black men are middle class environment, doing well for themselves, working hard, taking care of their families. Um, so I'm trying to understand what is the end goal in which we're measuring black men. Like, what are the expectations that black men are supposed to be? Are we supposed to be all like rich or famous or all with mansions? Like, is that how we're measuring black men? Like, are we just looking at black men through the lens of white people and white men and saying, okay, well, since white men are the standard, then based off that standard, then black men are like doing like, how are we? I really would like to understand how we're like analyzing black men here.
That's a great question. When I spoke previously, I think about manhood. I just think that I spoke to like the cultural shift and the types of beliefs and practices that men now either hold or becoming more popularized. I think will be more harmful to men. And so I think mental health is a good metric to measure manhood or black manhood. I can't remember the specific word you used in your question, but yeah, I think, the overall quality of life is one of the metrics we could use to determine, our progress, so to speak. But I'd be interested to hear other people chime in on that question.
So you're saying mental health is a good place to start. I don't want to misquote you, but yeah, is that basically what you're saying? Like black men, like investing in their own personal mental health. Is that right?
Not necessarily investing, so to speak. If it's healthy, I don't. If your cultural practices are running optimally, you don't necessarily have to invest in your mental health. It should just be at a standard, that is healthy. You know what I mean? Just like if you're eating food, your diet, your daily digest is proper or appropriate. You don't necessarily have to worry about your physical health. And the same goes for mental health. If you are cultivating an environment, existing in an environment that your cultural practices and ideas are healthy, then you would have a positive outlook on life. You'd have optimal function of your mental health. So yes, I guess I don't know about the invest part. I'm not sure what you meant by that, but absolutely, if you are healthy mentally, physically, then I think that's a measurement to say that you know things are going well in your life.
I think most black men are healthy. Um, I think that um, it's extremely difficult to measure um, the totality of black men and whatever they're doing. I mean, I don't think there's been any studies that have looked at what black men are, what the mental health is like, or whatever. That's why I keep asking, what is the standard? What is the expectation? What is the ultimate goal that we're saying that black men are somehow haven't met yet? If we could define that, because it seems like we're looking at black men from a very narrow
I,
lens of degeneracy.
Yeah, I would really like to add something in regards to like just to hone in on the definition of manhood. I'm not looking up the definition. I just want to add a perspective. When I think about manhood or even womanhood, right? I don't think of it as something that just is and just being, right? Because you're more male and female, right? I believe manhood or womanhood, but in this case, manhood is a series of behaviors and habits that you decide and choose to incorporate to become said man, right? So I don't think it's just oh, I'm a man. No, what intentional behaviors and habits are you consciously doing to become the man that you want to be? And if you are a man that leans towards tradition and cultural whatever cultural um cultural practices and things of that nature, then that's still a decision that that man does. Or if you pave your own path and you do something more liberal or whatever the word is, whatever that word is, it's a decision of that man, right?
Yep, and I put it in the title. I mean, not the title. Put it in the chat. If you look up the definition of manhood, it says state or period of being a man state or period of being a man rather than a child. But here's what it says underneath that, and it goes to your point, Junebug. It says qualities, plural, qualities traditionally associated with men, such as courage, strength, and sexual potency. That's what it says. So I agree. It's not this state of being, but it's also these qualities that when we look at manhood, there's these pillars and of values, right? And I guess what I'm asking is, what are those pillars, right? What are those qualities? Is it besides, I like courage, I like strength. I think sexual potency is I think that's funny, but obviously men for the most part value that, right? For the most part. Um, that's a human thing. I get it. But then these other values, right? What else should be added on that list? You know what I mean? Like, what are the qualities? They just gave us a few, but what are the other qualities that says, oh, this got to be in the recipe of manhood?
Yeah, I would add competent and the word escapes me. Resilient, and so in the sense of having fortitude and discipline to see things through even when times are difficult.
I would add integrity and honesty. Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Perseverance. Sound like Suda, you were kind of unpacking perseverance a little bit. Resilience.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean these are very good qualities. Now, I guess my question for the room is, do y'all believe black men as a whole like hold up to these standards or hold up to these qualities consistently? Like the resilience, the perseverance, all these other values. Do we do a good job of upholding these things?
That is such a difficult question for me to answer, but I would, you know, relate to, I guess, kind of the state of our institutions. And I think that those institutions are now devaluing some of those things, particularly perseverance and resilience and even strength and assertiveness. So it would, if I'm trying to estimate, how we're doing, if the state of our institutions are devaluing those things, I think the output would be a decrease in those things rather than a, increase or even just maintaining. So I think to that extent, I think that those things are on the decline. Those values are on the decline.
So is it just the institutions that are devaluing it, or just are there just individuals that just don't care?
Well,
Because there's men that care about these values, but there's also men that don't, right? And it has nothing to do with the state of the institutions or anything like that. It's a matter of it, it's not a priority. It's just it is what it is, right? So you know what I mean? Like I don't want to discount because there are I that's why I think it's so tough to answer these things because I think we all know men or who exemplify these things and we don't want to offend those individuals, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people that will openly say I don't give a shit about that. I don't care. And that's the truth.
So how are
well,
these men upholding these standards? Like they're under the same institutions that we are, but they still have these values. So what are they doing that other men are not doing?
I would imagine that they grew up in spite of the institutions that are devaluing these values, and in an environment or households that did value them, that gave them the wherewithal and sinew to be above the influence. And so, and also to your question, Junebug, I don't know if it's solely the institutions. I was just using that as a reference point to for my estimation, because it's hard to say what the total of black men are or are not doing. But I do think that there are a lot of cultural practices and I'll even say beliefs that do not that aren't commensurate with upholding these standards and values. So to that extent, again, the institution and many cultural practices don't lend to creating the men of the caliber in which I think our culture dictates or sets, or at least previously set.
Here we go. Here we go, BK. I want to have an intelligent conversation, BK. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm just really confused because do we not live in a white hegemonic society where like white heteronormativity kind of defines these structures? So when you say black manhood, what exactly are you talking about? And this is why I facetiously say to a lot of these niggas that they feel at manhood consistently because if you're over 40 and you're not married with that white picket fence, you kind of felt at manhood based on society standards.
Is that okay? So let's unpack that a little bit. Is that completely the black man's fault, or are those institutions that you are presenting a part of that, influences that outcome?
No, I'm saying it's the consistent like contradiction of like you don't want to live under this structure, but you also want to be a part of that structure. So I feel like black men have yet to define exactly what black manhood is because a lot of the attributes that a lot of black men say is a black man, it falls under white heteronormativity because we are in a white hegemonic society.
But
That's the harsh
wouldn't
reality.
but
Let's
wouldn't
keep.
they also? Are you done? Oh, okay, yeah. I was gonna say, but wouldn't they also fall under like Indian, male heteronormativity? I can't forgot what you said, but like and under other cultures, not just whites, that there are a lot of similarities between men of various cultures.
How so? You mentioned Indians, so I was just trying to understand the parallel.
Well, I just looked for a group that wasn't white. It could be Asian, Indian, you know, um, Hispanic or Latin. I think that
But
there's
even when you talk about Indians and let's say like the Chinese, for example, a lot of that is very like the way they view manhood is also very anti-black. So I'm just trying to understand like to Jim Boy's point, your parallel.
I don't understand that, but I guess the parallel is like if some of the cultural values that black men aspire to also, align with white men's, but what then do we make of it if they also align with men of various other cultures, like the resilience, the assertiveness, the leadership, the integrity, all of these things, if they kind of span the gamut of males, the human males, why would whiteness be a consideration?
I think Junebug, you had a question before I respond to that.
No, go ahead. I can't remember my question because I may have another new question because I don't to discount that white supremacy is not a problem is I don't really think we should remove that as an outline. Like I understand, like I know that in my speech I lean towards more of an individualism type of perspective when it comes to taking accountability, but I'm not gonna discount white supremacy. I'm sorry. It's a real thing.
Is that what you think
It's
I
a real
just did?
thing, and it requires us to be introspective in those two facts.
Is
It's
that
really
what you
done.
think I just did?
No, 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 no. I didn't. I mean,
Okay,
that's just kind of like my line of thinking of where I'm about to get confused. I just want to kind of state that and add that to the pot. So not really what you said, but I just want to kind of add that to the pot. Hope that makes sense.
got it. Yes.
Yeah, I think I think because the challenging thing is like again when we define like manhood, unfortunately, and this is like part of like black feminist ideology and even like black womanism and like we do live in a white heteronormative society. So a lot of like the way black men treat women, the way black men even show up is under the guise of white supremacy. So like even how black men are viewed, like you're viewed as like violent brutes. So is that black manhood? Like so, because it's like you niggas literally would tell each other, "Oh, you weak, you a pussy ass nigga. You need to be a man. You need to man up." That's how y'all treat each other. We see it on here, and we see it in society. So, what exactly is black manhood? Have you even defined what that is?
We actually have not.
Wait. Okay.
We should
I thought you
we
did
should
the
go
best
ahead.
job of that, Jumbo.
What do you mean? Did I miss it? I apologize.
No, you said it. I'm saying I thought you gave the
I
best.
mean, well, manhood, sure, but apparently there's,
Oh,
not
okay.
apparently. I don't want to
Understood.
say,
Got you.
'cause
Got you. I
not,
see what
I
you're
don't want to be
saying.
facetious.
No, I understand what you
I
mean now.
mean it when I say that we really haven't defined manhood because there is a debate of if it even exists in the comments and things of that nature. So, and I personally, based on my lessons in Clubhouse, I'm not going to define that. Y'all got it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that, you know, this qualifier is all that meaningful. Like the
What
black,
let's try. Let me try to help you out with this question. Can it be exclusive from white heteronormativity?
I imagine it could be, but to the,
So
I
give me
guess
a
the, what
society,
if they
give me
what if
well,
they
give me a
align?
society
Just
in this
go ahead.
world where it exists without white heteronormativity.
I don't understand. Like, so if let's just say black manhood completely aligned with white manhood, that means that black manhood is subservient. Like it is the one that is attached to whiteness, not the other way around, or it is the one that is uh, false, or you know, it's not real. Only the white one is real. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I think where BK is going, which I'm also curious about, and I guess it's a statement and a question, so bear with me, y'all. I personally believe black men, we can attempt and we can try, and I think we could be successful if we're really like focused. I think we can define what black manhood is outside of white heteronormity. I think we can try, and I think we could possibly succeed, right? But again, that's going to take some knowledge, right? Some reference, some wisdom, and some idealism and some practicality, right? So I think it's going to take a few things. I don't think it's impossible. Think it can be done. Personally, that's just me. But I guess the question now is, can we do it? Like, do you guys think that we can define black manhood outside of white heteronormity, meaning we're not using whiteness as the blueprint. We're not using how white men move, right? To really simplify this for us. We're not using that as a reference point. We're using an empty canvas, right? And we're painting, we're drawing whatever this thing is. Is it possible?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it is, uh, I think grotesque, but it's very problematic that in a conversation of about black people, with no white people in the room, that their voice is so strong and powerful in here. You know what I mean? Why are they even being? But I don't know. It's just like it almost makes, because if let's say that to your question, if we can't, then all of these efforts are for naught. We should just, I don't know, accept our station in life, and I don't know,
Whoa.
be slaves to some extent.
Accept
Like
the
I'm saying, if
station
yeah,
in
if
life.
his question is, if we can't define
Mm-hmm.
ourselves outside of white heteronormativity or white supremacy to some extent, then if we cannot do that, then there's no point in holding this conversation. There's no point in
Well,
uh,
we
trying to exist in full humanity. It should be that we recognize that we can never manifest humanity, and as a result, should not attempt to aspire to it.
I mean, is so, and I don't want to misunderstand what you said. So if I did, please correct me immediately. However, what I'm hearing is to not even attempt to define, because the thing is like sometimes when you like, and I'll say this and I'll land real quick. It's like when you say who, like, can you describe yourself as a person, right? Sometimes that takes reflection. And if it takes time, and it takes time, like sometimes, like, why does everything have to be like, if I didn't get it, your first thought's not your best thought. Shit. You know what I mean? Like, so you're not gonna, so when I accept this, I see me see trouble low. Like, the Nigerian is like, accept what station and what life. That's why we have to. That's why we have to continue to say the elephant in the room with white supremacy, and why that's the biggest enemy, because it is a real problem, and even training our brains to think differently about it and imagine and think differently beyond it. Right? If it takes a little energy, if it takes a little discomfort, so be it. But if it's not worth trying to even think about it, then yeah, maybe we should end the conversation.
Right. So I think you agree with me because this question was, can we do it? And I say yes. That's my answer. But I'm saying, if we cannot, then all of this is for naught, if that makes sense. If we cannot define ourselves outside of that, what is the purpose?
No, my
This would
question
all
was,
be a,
can you define it? And
no, Curtis's
Curtis,
question.
well, no, well, yeah, and y'all have yet to define what that looks like.
Oh yeah, no, I was just answering Curtis's question and saying that if we
I would
cannot,
love
go
to.
ahead.
I would love to define it, but I'm also really don't want to. I want to be. I want to. It's so important to me to hear men define what they want in themselves, as opposed to me as a woman saying, "Oh, this is what I want." Like, I, y'all, you know what I mean? Like, it's really a respect thing. I'm not even really trying to like be facetious about it. Like, I think it's important for y'all to do that.
Yeah, that's well received and appreciated. I mean, I listed some of the values and, characteristics that I think, black men should ascribe to. But I think in some sense they were discounted because they also are ascribed to by other males of other races.
What's up, Lawrence? And folks, if you're in the good, you want to come up, have this, Very engaging conversation. Please, please come on up. We're trying to figure out black manhood. Can we define it outside of whiteness? Basically, is what we're what
Yeah,
we're
the
trying to
answer to
get
that
to
is
here.
fairly simple. Yeah, that's a yes, and Pseudo is 100% right, and we should just move on. If it's not a yes for a lot of people, take it to a vote and just move on. But I think always centering whiteness in our conversation about establishing ourselves through whiteness, or we can't do it through whiteness, it's in and of itself problematic and therefore almost anti-black. It's kind of weird. It's like we're circling around to try to define ourselves, and then somebody always raises their hand. But what about white people? What about how they perceive the world? No, we're in this room right now. We could actually have a conversation. We could define manhood. For me, manhood is simple. It's effective. It's accountable. It's disciplined. It is knowledge attaining. It is growth. It is building. All these things that make men, and it just so happened that a lot of other men all around the world, no matter if they're black, white, Hispanic, Lebanese, Iranian, a lot of other men believe in the same thing. Turns out manhood is global. That's what manhood is: growth, competition, and pursuit of self, higher self.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is the most anti-black sentiment one can express, and that it like is conclusive in our second classness, and or at least if it's not, I mean, I think it's at least pro-white. It is the most pro-white thing you could say if it's not the most anti-black thing,
So
but I
why
think they're
acknowledge
one
that?
and the same.
Why acknowledge that black people are second class? I don't really see black people as second class. Like I don't even. I don't know. I mean, like if it's like if we go back and forth and say, okay, like we shouldn't we shouldn't talk about white supremacy, but then it's just like we mentioned second class and second class to who? Y'all not black people not second class to nobody. So I'm just
I did,
confused. Like
yeah, I
it's
didn't
just
say
like
that we were. I think, yeah, to clarify, I'm not saying that we are second class. I'm actually saying the exact opposite. But I'm saying anybody who holds that belief must acknowledge that you are then putting black ideology, black identity as subsequent, as a as something below, white patriarchy, white supremacy, whiteness. It's below whiteness. And so when you do that, not you specifically, when one does that, it is in fact a statement about black and second classness. That I'm not saying that I think we're
I see
second
what you
class at
mean.
all.
Okay,
Yeah.
So how okay,
understood.
I'm sorry. How do you first agree with me that we do live in a white hegemonic society and then backtrack and say we shouldn't talk about it? I'm just uh, see this is oh God.
When
This
did
is
I
this
agree with
shows
that?
go no go yeah. This shows that like you again, I said that you define it excluding white heteronormativity. It was not about bringing white people into this. It was, to Junebug's point, define it for yourself and what does that look like for black men. Because the reality is, we do live in a white hegemonic society. Give me a society on this globe where black people are actually dominant and run everything. We don't. If that exists, let me know.
I think I don't understand about what you mean by run everything. I think we run ourselves. I think, you know, which is sufficient. We run our households, um, we run our families, and to the, I guess, intent or import from the room title, we run our community. So th- I don't know, like, so if you're saying, like, let's just say the GDP of a small country is outpaced so grossly by another's that the people in that country who run that country, who govern that country, aren't necessarily leaders because there are other countries that by some metrics are better, bigger, you know, more advanced. Is that I don't think that just because another country has more or does more, or you know, is more, doesn't mean that you then don't have sovereignty over yourself or of your community.
So let me say this. I see this in the chat. I want to welcome Dante and everyone in the room. Appreciate y'all. And Kelly, I appreciate you saying this. You said that there's not a linear definition of manhood, let alone black manhood. I hear that, but you know what's interesting with that is that, and I want Kelly, I hope you could come on up. So the thing that I have with that statement is especially in these rooms, we kind of position ourselves with this kind of macro expectation though with our community as black people, right? We don't say, well, like people have the right to do whatever families or do whatever. We don't kind of present that talking point. We present this very macro point of view, like this is what we should all be aspiring for. Like we don't say like, oh well, we can't be linear, we have to, like there is this standard that collectively that we're aspiring for, that we kind of put out there in these conversations, especially in the relationship rooms, gender war rooms, whatever you want to call it. So I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I think there are universal principles that, again, I'm just using like this app and compact continuous conversations. Like people will present these viewpoints like we should be doing this and we should be doing that, and this is how we should be moving. Does this make sense, Kelly? Yes. What's up, Kelly? Does that make sense, Kelly?
Hey, good evening, y'all. I was trying to stay in the goo.
No.
So so the thing is, I think that there are some core tenets to manhood, right? But then we have to look at the history of where that came from. And if you look at it from a historical context, um, you know, manhood in general was provide for the home. He's there was no 50-50, right? There couldn't be 50-50 because historically women could not work. So they had to, right? They had no other choice but to provide and protect. If you go even further than what we call normalized civilization, typically the men were the protectors, right? We think about Neanderthals. But in those days there was a community definition of what manhood was, and everybody, if you did not abide by that, that was life or death in that day. Fast forward to today, there is no one linear definition. You cannot, right? If you look at America, just the melting pot of a country that we are, that if there is someone from Haiti or someone from Nigeria or someone from Jamaica, and they migrate to America, all three of those groups have different definitions of manhood that they brought with them, right? When they came to this country. And then you look at the fact that we have that, I hate having this conversation, that women are now allowed to work, that they are providing for households now, right? So the whole he got to provide thing, there's some folks that still kind of hold on to that, but then there are others who don't abide by that, right? So then if you take away the provider, the physical provision aspect of manhood, which is supposed to be universal, then what are you left with? But I think that the way BK would define manhood would be different than the way that human would define manhood, right? And again, there are core tenets amongst black men who would have some baseline of the definition, but that's not the definition as a whole. And so I don't think that this is not a linear discussion. Now if you ask the question, is your
Kelly,
black manhood on the decline, then we probably
Kelly,
be able to have a different conversation.
Kelly, I'm sorry to
So
interrupt you.
so Kelly, I
No,
have
no,
a
no, no,
question.
no, no, no,
No,
no,
I
no,
had a
no, no, no,
question.
no, 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 no. I want to have this conversation with Kelly, and I'm gonna pass it to you, BK. So, Kelly, I love you, sis. I really do. You're saying there isn't this linear. Again, I present this perspective once again, right? that may be what you're saying, but in action, that's not what's happening, especially from a lot of women, right? Whether it's on this app, whether it's podcasts, social media. And let's not make the excuse like, oh, it's social media and it's performance and entertainment. No, 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 no. There's truth in what people are producing and doing. That's my personal belief. So, with that said, that's not what's being put out there on men. The expectations that women have for men is not linear, it's very specific things. Would you agree? Yes or no?
I believe that there are some old models of thinking that still exist. Yes, I will say yes to that.
Right. So what that means is that there is this macro standard that women are putting out there. Like men should be doing this. They've defined it, they've laid it out, they've defined it's not this linear
Women
kind
didn't
of
set those
line.
standards.
No, 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 no. Even okay, you see, BK, you see, that's why you jumped in because you know where I'm going
No,
with
because
this.
you're loud and wrong.
Well, and yeah, and see, Curtis, the thing about that is who if you subsume or you acquiesce to what somebody else puts on you, then that's your decision. That doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it a thing, right? And so that's why I was saying that there is no linear definition. But if you decide to allow society to paint this picture of who you are and you put that on, well, then that's your decision. Now,
But
I
that's not the conversation, Kelly. The
Yeah,
conversation is men should have this. This is the standard. Men should be doing, they've defined it specifically. And on a macro perspective, there's a lot of women who agree. They're not saying what you're saying is basically what I'm getting to. They're not saying, well, it's not this linear thing. It's not these nuances. It's no, it's this right here. Right
well,
here at the top above. Do you see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying, but I also have a brain that's bigger than the size of a bird's brain, right? So I can think beyond the broad strokes that people who don't want to read, who don't want to think, who don't want to research, who don't want to develop their own sense of identity, I can think beyond those people, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like in this conversation, if you are defining manhood by the broad stroke, I'm going back down to the goo because I can't participate because my thought process has
Why? Stay here.
But you know what?
no,
Well,
You mind if
could I
I?
say this then real quick? Because I think manhood is a social
Wasn't
construct.
our next?
It's external to the individual, and so therefore, it's not personal to the. You know what I mean? Like it makes no. There's no point in having the conversation if it's only personal. The word means nothing if everybody gets to define it for themselves, right?
But
There's
you know
no
what? I'll say this
No,
objectivity
real quick.
to it.
that makes
But you
no
know,
sense.
but I'm gonna say this real quick. I mean, because in truth, with no trolling or nothing, usually I love to troll. There is nobody in this room who can tell me what manhood is. No one. Being very honest with you, I saw that with my dad. My dad defined manhood for me. Now that's it for me. I mean, Lawrence, maybe for you, someone here can tell you what that is, but no one can tell me what it is. I mean, well, you can tell me. Chances of me listening to you are none to nothing. My dad defined it. Growing up in that household with my mom and dad, I saw that. Then I took his knowledge and my life experiences and developed manhood. Now I have bonus sons. What I've instilled in them and whatever they may have gotten from their dads, they're going to now take that off into the world. And that's how we carry. Now, here's the point. I'll take a step back. If you say something, because I may come in here with the intent to not really take anything, doesn't mean it won't happen. Because you can give me something, I'm like, never thought about it that way. So then, yes, I can apply it, but can you define it for me? The answer is no. You can't define it. We can have this conversation about how to expand it, how to grow it. Now, if society looks at it and say, oh well, black manhood is on the decline. Well, maybe in your eyes, maybe in your view, maybe in your opinion, It is. And an opinion's like an ass. Everyone got one. I don't, it doesn't matter to me because in my mind, I don't see it declining. But I don't see it declining because in my proximity, I see growth. Now, once again, if you're in a position or an environment where it is declining, hey, now we can sit back and say, okay, how, at that point, I think that we can all collectively come together and add some insight on how it's working for us. And maybe you can take something from it, maybe you don't, who knows? But, and the last point I really want to make is, and it's no disrespect to women, excuse me, in this room, we can't ask women to define manhood for us. We can't. That's a horrible mistake because unless they've been a man or something and we don't know about it, okay. From the time you was a man till you turn into a woman, define it for us at that point. But if you just grew up as a woman, you may define it manhood based off of proximity to your dad, your stepdad, your grandfather, whoever it may be. But as a woman, growing up as a woman, what can you really tell us? No different than me trying to define womanhood. Don't know, don't care, because I'm not a woman. I can put my wife on here, and then y'all can have that conversation. So, I mean, that's my humble opinion. If I'm wrong, I'm okay with being wrong. But I mean, I think
Can you land, please?
I
no, my plane is just taking off. We just hit the runway. Okay, I land now.
was
Thank
saying,
you. Oh, can I just say this really? Sorry. Um, Kelly, thank you for adding history to this conversation. But I do have a question. Does anybody really know like what separate spears is and what their ideology is? Because that's actually what did define what manhood and womanhood was
Now
during
you
the
know good and
Enlightenment
damn
period.
well.
Right. Yeah. But during the Enlightenment period, for history context, that's the year of 1685 to 1815. Where were Black people on this globe then? Either enslaved or going through colonization. So, yeah, what exactly
A
are we
few of
talking
us were
about?
defending empire. Some of us were still
Oh, in
successfully
Haiti,
defending
yeah.
empire.
In Haiti,
You
that was
know, yeah.
happening, yeah.
And also, a few places on the continent. But whatever. Let me mind my Black American business.
I got a question. I
Curtis,
got
oh,
a
go ahead. My
question.
bad, bro.
Yeah, real quick, and I'm gonna pass it to you, Dante. Question for you, Junebug. Are you there?
I'm still here, yes.
Okay, question for you.
Okay.
And it's simple yes or no question.
Okay, I'll keep it yes or no.
Are
Thank
right.
you.
Are women from a community standpoint frustrated with how men are moving in general? Yes or no?
I would say yes, but
Why?
people don't care. It's very evident. But I mean, why? Well, I'll say I think it's interesting. Well, I can't speak for all women, so I'm just gonna say from my perspective as a woman, and if anyone else disagrees, that's fine, right? Um, I think it's and for a man, I would be disappointed. I think I don't know if I'm ready to be honest in this room. I'll be honest with you. I don't think it's. I'm not. Let me simmer on. Let me find the words. Let me find the words, Curtis. I want to be respectful.
Can I
Mm,
respond to Pseudo in the meantime?
So it's okay. Take your time, Jumbo. The reason why I asked you this question is because if women, in your opinion, are frustrated with collectively with how men are moving, that tells me as a man that women collectively are looking to men to have certain standards, and that's not linear. That's an agreement. You
Curtis,
see how that goes?
can I respond to CeeLo and I want to respond to what
Go
you just
ahead.
said. So
Go
to
ahead.
Pseudo's point about masculinity or not masculinity, manhood losing its definition, if it is subjective or personal, I think that absolutely is not how the gravity of meaning making works. I think the fact that it is, something that everyone invests in, like actually efforts towards conceptualizing for themselves and like embodying and enacting on their own terms, actually is what substantiates it and makes it meaningful in the world, and it makes it meaningful and resonant, and it actually creates the thing that allows us to relate to one another. So the meaning, like, that's absolutely vital. And if you don't participate in the process of how you identify and the things that anchor you in your self concept, then you don't have a self. You'll just be being something else. So if you spend your life, and this is kind of pivoting to your points and your logics, Curtis, like, if you actually commit yourself to performing and trying to contort into a particular archetype that's somehow generated in the ether of society somewhere, it's just like you never actually are yourself. You are never tuned into your authentic expression of you, because you're always performing something else and like kind of like making yourself, hollowing yourself out to kind of like perform this superficial thing that's just kind of like diffuse in the air. And it's just like that's not a healthy, grounded, realized existence. That is just a performance of expectation. And that's just not really a real existence. It's a performance. And it's like that is hollow and it's goofy. And I think that, like, if it feels like you're kind of like, it's very obvious that there's a particular kind of conversation you want to have, and that there's a level and a set of logics you want us to adopt and assumptions you want us to make to have it. And if that's stimulating to you, fine. But I do think that there are more advanced conversations that
So
mature
slow,
people can
slow, slow
have
down,
about this.
slow down. So what type of conversation am I trying to have?
It's
Break
a
it down.
particular, it's one that I think you have the minds in the space, based on what I've heard since I've come in and what people seem prepared to speak to. I think you can actually push past this particular threshold of complexity and like willingness to grapple with nuance. Like, I think you can actually have a more sophisticated conversation about gender dynamics, other than men mad at women and men just trying to figure out how to be men, and like, and all that stuff that's been going on Clubhouse since 2021, and like earlier than that in society and culture. It's like, I think there are so many more people are equipped to have more nuanced and sophisticated conversations, and I think you'll be surprised at how rich and how robust that gets, as opposed to trying to like make a bunch of mature people talk about this in a way that we're all too mature to think about it as, because we've all grown up. We all have too much perspective to just treat it like this thing where it's like, oh, it's just everybody's just the black male group think and black woman group think, and we just a bunch of penises and vaginas making decisions together. And it's like, the people in this room are too mature, too sophisticated. Like, we're not going to talk about this like that because we know better. So it's like, okay, well, what is an actual more sophisticated way we can do this?
So let me respond. I'm gonna pass it to you, Kelly. I hear what you're saying, Saint, but however, I'm trying to unpack a lot of stuff, right? And I'm just going by because I listen a lot on this app, right? I listen, and again, for the most part, I would say a high percentage rate. Most of the complaints, in my opinion, women are given towards men. It's not this human perspective. Part of it is, but it's also to a lot of ways the gender roles, like how men are socialized, right? Providing, protecting, being the breadwinner, you know, basically it's these social constructs that women are expecting men to do. It's not this
Which is what separate
baseline.
spears is. That's what
Hold on.
separate
Okay,
spears is, Curtis. Like,
okay,
hello, what are we
okay.
talking
Well, can I
about?
finish? Can I finish? Can I finish? Hold on. So it's not this baseline, and put the link in the chat, BK, if you're so triggered. So put it in the chat so we could all review and learn because I've read it too. Okay. But I'm just trying to, again, I'm trying to break it down and give perspectives here so that everybody, everybody can digest, right? Everybody can understand where I'm coming from. It's not this human baseline, human decency thing. No, it's the social constructs that have been put on men and the expectations on how men move. And if men are not performing to that standard, there's a problem.
Some people view
Is
it
that
that way.
wrong?
But
There's a
some people
social
view it that way. But
consequence.
do you care? It's like, so yes, that's true. Do you care though? Like, is that the end of the line for your thinking and how you choose to show up in the world? So are you going to dedicate yourself, Curtis, to spending the rest of your life trying to, like, meet all of these demands that you these messages that you get from miscellaneous women you meet in your life? Is that what you're genuinely about to do with all of your life force? Are you gonna keep doing whatever Curtis want to do and figuring out what make Curtis happy and going to places Curtis want to go and watching the movies Curtis want to watch and doing what make Curtis happy at some point and truly not giving a shit about what a whole bunch of strangers are saying somewhere else in the world? Because why would you care about that when that don't have anything to do with Curtis? With men,
Which,
women, black, white, whoever. Like at some point, are you gonna commit to being yourself no
But the
matter what?
women tell us
Or
what.
yeah,
what?
But
but
see, they're
yeah,
not
but you
talking.
you're
But wait, wait, wait.
presuming that
But they're
you're
not right. But the women are not talking like you saying. The women are saying that we should
I'm
yeah,
care.
saying
but
Not
but
all
but
the
talking
women,
like
hold
a
on, but
man,
right?
Curtis, he's
because a man
presuming
don't
that
give a
what
shit.
you want or what brings you pleasure isn't the woman. You know what I
What
mean?
I'm
So it's
saying
like,
is, it's when it comes to who you are and how you are going to show up in the world. You don't know who you're going to be with. You don't know how long they're going to be there. You can't control shit else about what's going on except for who you are and how you show up. So it's like when it comes to that, are you going to be you or not? And if a part of you is manhood, however you experience it and express it and whatever feels real and true to you, that's a part of you. So are you going to be that or not?
So
That
but
is the
all are
So
decision
there
that
should
comfortable.
be
everybody
no
got to
more.
make.
So there should be no more gender wars moving forward. There should be
Correct.
no more expectation. All right. So it's
so
still
Curtis,
happening.
but here's the
Why?
thing. This
Because
is
some
the
people
thing
do
that
that.
I need you to understand, Curtis. Like Clubhouse is such a microcosm of the rest of the world. This is such a small like speck on the spectrum of what we experience in the world. 95% of the foolishness I've heard has only been on this app. I don't have these experiences where women are
No, there's podcasts, Kelly. Don't do that. Don't minimize this. There's
no, I'm not
podcasts. There's
minimizing
all
it, but
types
what
of
I'm
influence
no,
out here.
wait a minute, but it's not about minimizing it. It's about broadening the conversation. I understand where you're trying to go, and yes, you do have a lot of stuff to unpack. But having these "I gotcha" moments and "let me try to prove you wrong" moments in order to really like unfold this conversation, that's not the way to go about doing it if you are going to have highly intellectual people in the room. And that's all we're saying, right? And so
This is not I got you. This is just a friendly debate. This
no,
is
but
just
it's
us
not really a
sharing
friendly.
perspectives.
Well, it's giving. I want to get content, and I don't necessarily want to have an intellectual
That's
conversation that we
not
can
fair,
really
Kelly.
unpack
That's
and
Nah,
not
and
she
fair.
right,
and
bro.
right.
I
That
feel
That's
So
like
not
you're
fair.
was
doing
good to you.
exactly what you're saying he's doing.
Wait, wait,
Nah, don't gaslight him.
Curtis,
Let's give it
I,
Goofy.
That's what I'm saying.
Give
You
I
him
just
can't
Goofy.
believe.
diminished
Wait,
his
wait.
intent, just and then
So he just tried
operated
to
from
pass off
that.
our perception of what's going on because we clocking exactly what's happening here.
Well, then instead
Wow.
of clocking, let's just get into it. Let's just get
Hey,
into it,
Curtis, I have a
right?
question for you, man, if you don't
Because
mind.
Go
go
ahead,
ahead, go ahead.
Dante.
My
But
question for
David
you
was speaking.
is,
Why is
what are
Dante
you
speaking?
looking, what are you looking to, like, what is your goal for this room? I'm curious about that because before I get add anything, take anything, what is your goal?
My ultimate goal with this room is just on a baseline perspective that we can have, we can debate, we have a healthy debate, we can share each other's perspectives, and in the end, we can all walk away with some value. But here's the problem, right? When people assume that you're trying to do something that is nefarious, then guess what? There's not going to be no value because people are going to put their guards up and be defensive and want to bang because this is what the app has done to people. You see what I'm saying, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I gotcha, and I'm trying to like over intellectualize and mentally and verbally. No, no, no. This is we can agree to disagree because when people say that this is what I'm trying to do, they're presenting this framework as if it's I'm I have some evil mad scientist like intention, and that is far from what I'm trying to do. And when people have that, in my opinion, when people have that in their mind and their heart, then these conversations are not going to really go anywhere. Because, like I said, it's going to be people going to have their guards up. They're not going to be open to nuance, and they're not going to be open to perspectives, even if they don't agree. They're just going to. It's a fight. It's a
but
fight, and that's not
Curtis,
what it
I'm
is.
not at all trying to
That,
be offensive to you. What I am saying is this: is even when I shared my perspective, you wanted to prove me wrong. You wanted to back me into a corner, and you tried to ask a line of questioning to get to the point that you wanted to get to instead of just allowing the conversation to flow. And BK was bouncing off of me, and then Saint bounced off the next, and that's what we're talking about the ability to just have the conversation. We could talk about the topic, but it felt as if you had an agenda. And has nothing to do with you being nefarious. It has nothing to do with you being slick, right? It has everything to do with if you got something that you want to get off your chest and that you want to say, then say it. But don't try to make me say it, because your thoughts are not my thoughts. And I want to be able to
Well,
come to a space and have a conversation and share my thoughts without being trying to be proven wrong. Give me new information that I can consider, and perhaps it will shift and evolve my perspective. But when you talk at me and have a line of questioning to try to force me into a pigeonhole of your opinion or your perspective, then that's where the guard goes up. That's where it feels like, okay, you do have an agenda. So that's all we're saying. If you don't have an agenda, then let the conversation flow. Let's bounce off of each other. Let's hear different perspectives, right? I came into this room because I honestly want to hear what people think about manhood. I know what I have in my mind, right? But I can't define manhood for anybody. I can only interpret what I experience from men. And so all I'm saying is, if we're going to have the conversation, then it should be one where it's not trying to get someone to come to your side, and just let me hear your thoughts, and then maybe I'll adopt what you have to say, but not forcefully or with the line of question that you won't make me answer these yes or no questions in order to get to the point that you're trying to get to. That's all I'm saying.
Why was BK and Saint bouncing off of you, but not what Curtis did? It seemed like
Curtis
from my
literally just said,
perspective,
"Wait,
from
wait,
my
wait."
perspective,
Curtis came
yeah,
up.
okay,
Wait a minute.
yeah, go.
Curtis came off the
Boy, I
mic
was
and
just
said,
started talking. Why would you?
but
Go
Curtis
ahead.
came off the mic and all he inserted was women are setting these standards when he knows that's loud and wrong. Like, are you okay, Curtis? You know that's wrong.
How am I
What?
wrong?
You don't think women have
All right.
expectations of men?
That's
The
crazy.
heck is
I
So,
don't
going
think that's
oh
the
my
on?
point.
God.
Hold on, BK, real quick, right? But when we talk about like women having expectations of men, we're not talking about like specifically what is manhood even in that moment, right? Like if you name that, like women have expectations of men, I mean, we have an entire like let's just focus on where we at. Let's focus on the country. There are power dynamics set up in which there need to be expectations of men. Like if you're going into a world where like let's be honest, functionally you have less power, there need to be these expectations set up when there are already expectations on you from birth for how you need to be showing up in this world simply because you were born with XX chromosomes. Like there are certain ways in which like we have to acknowledge that there's multiple levels to conversations being had, right? For instance, right, in the context of white folk, there it's very common for us to look at them and be like, how could you fail, how could you be poor, you're white. The expectation is if you're born into whiteness, right? Like you're already got a social leg up. You should be in a certain positionality. Like you, if you're poor and white, or your ancestors' worst dreams, right? I think that you can apply that same thinking to when we talk about gender, around like how people like play around with those social dynamics. But like when you get more into like the concept of like what manhood is, right? This is something that's insular and defined by men, but consistently over like what you keep seeing in the theory of manhood itself is that like it doesn't apply to any man, like any man specifically, right? Like it's this idea of these values. It's always these abstract kind of things that we throw out that honestly we would all generally say make a decent human, right? Oftentimes you hear about transparency, you hear about a good work ethic, you hear about all those other things that people feel like define what is a good man. And then if you add the layer of blackness on top of that, I think a lot of it really is rooted in this idea that like your personhood, your humanhood is rooted in your productivity, which is like anti-black ass, like it's anti-black as fuck, like just rhetoric. Period. If you think about how we were just viewed as tools, but I've been speaking for a minute, so y'all can go ahead.
This is the thing, man. You know, I mean, and Curtis, thank you for, what you stating your purpose is. And PTR, usually I try my best not to agree with you, but that was a very amazing speech. So I agree. But I I think that, when we're having discussions about something about manhood, especially black manhood, we have to understand that number one, we all have different backgrounds. We come from different locations, different parts of the world, different parts of the states, what have you. And also, I think we also have to take into account as you continue to get older, continue to grow, how you define certain things. Now, there's core points that are going to maybe that you may maintain, you may hold on to, but some things are going to adjust. Some things are going to switch a little bit as you continue to live. That's just the way life works. I mean, I look at myself at 47. Next month I hit 48, and Laura says the same. In 2 years I hit 50. I cannot tell you how I'm going to define anything in the next 2 years. I only can tell you how I'm defining things at this very moment, and unless, excuse me, any life alternate experiences happen, maybe I'll hold on to how I think today. Maybe next month, maybe I'll change it. But when you're looking at manhood, I don't. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think it's on the decline. I don't. I just think that we, as well, number one, men are starting. We are continuing to evolve, and I think sometimes it's uncomfortable to see. Because once upon a time, we were, we talk about our grandfathers and all that kind of stuff. And, our great grandfathers, maybe, and we're talking about a silent generation. We're talking about the men who didn't speak, they just acted, they just did things. But along the way, we saw that, they were experiencing mental health crisis, but they couldn't speak on it because it was seen as weak. So, I mean, but at that time, that was manhood. That was something that was defined as manhood. Today, you fast forward the clock 100 years later, we are now speaking on things and we're now talking about things that are possibly considered weak, soft, whatever the case may be. But that could be what real manhood is all about, speaking on the things that we consider to be weak and soft. So I don't think it's on decline, man. I think if anything, it's evolving, and we have to adapt to what is continuously evolving. Because I can guarantee you, I have a grandson, he's 4 years old, and 14 years from now, he hits 18, and Lord says the same, I'm still living. I'm pretty sure he's going to look at manhood a hell of a lot differently than I do. And is he
And
wrong? And am
it,
I right? You see my point? So
well, it's not.
I'm
I
think that.
think it's a. I think there's a great point, but it's
Let me
about
say something
better
real
or
quick.
worse. Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Not wrong or right. Better or worse.
So, in regards to is the black manhood in decline, I wouldn't put it as black men in decline. I would say men are in decline, and I'm not attacking men. I love the men that are around me. They're not um problematic. But in regards to this topic, I did appreciate Kelly bringing in the history and BK bringing in the conversation about said 1618. It is very subjective in regards to this particular conversation and title because there's individual preferences, there's cultural and social influences, there's personal experiences, context of life stage, emotional connections, and oh Lord, evolutionary psychology factors as well as media influence. And we always talk about the media influence more than anything else. And we center it so much so that we don't go into the dialogue about why there is such a media influence and who's behind said media influence. And then to continue to edify this particular aspect of conversation, there are some books that I would implore many of us to read. Starting with by Bell Hooks, All About Love, New Visions. We have a book by Issa Rae, The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. We have Sisters Outsiders, Essays and Speeches by Audre Lorde. We have More Than Enough, Calming Space for Who You Are by Eleanor Winthor. There's so many books out here, and these are different perspectives. This is why I say it's very subjective to say that the black man is in decline. There's been researches and conversations about that, and there's even women's study courses in universities and campuses having these dialogues and conversations, and we can have these conversations with people that are willing to have these conversations. But if we're going to sit here and nitpick how people are coming at each other or be condescending, how are we supposed to edify each other if we're not welcoming each other's different perspectives and mindsets in regards to how we navigate conversations? That's just my 2 cents. It's not worth shit. I'm done speaking.
Missy, I told Curtis to read The Will to Change, and he has yet to read it.
To be fair,
You
Missy
know,
has
I'm
not
not trying to
read
be
it.
Listen,
funny.
Like,
this guy, man.
Well,
And I'm not
BK.
saying that as an excuse. Like we know that most people don't just casually read. So I'm
Pardon?
not gonna be disappointed, but at the same time, I get the disappointment.
Yeah,
If that makes any type of sense to you, BK.
yeah, yeah.
I
I'm not
told
gonna
him
say
this
Curtis. I'm
4
not gonna
months
say Curtis
ago.
is a terrible person for not reading the book that you recommended, but yeah, that's all. All
No, I
right.
mean, like, there's something to be said though about like how there's like an elitist notion behind like just telling people just to go read. And I'm not saying like
It's not an
this is
elitist
like
notion. It's called let's
hold
stop being ignorant and conjugating each other's
guys, hold
viewpoints. And
on.
I didn't come at a condescending tone. I did
I'm
start
not
with
saying you
that.
did.
Yeah, okay.
You're cutting me off, right?
And
So in this, what I'm saying is the majority of the U.S. is at or below a fourth grade reading level,
sixth
right?
grade
Like
reading
that's
level to be
kind of the
correct. Go
world we
ahead.
it's fourth, but and I said majority for a reason, right? But in that, right, I think that there's something to be said though about where like what is your social location where you finding yourself, into the point about like where it's okay to tell like just run around telling people to read. Like when we talk about the dissemination of information, a lot more people are learning from like the conversations that we have amongst each other, like in community, how we have those conversations, and then
Mhm.
honestly, right, like what conversations are made like cute and sexy. Like for instance, she mentioned media, right? The entire point is for information like dissemination, like getting out a message to like most people as possible. Anything that's attractive, anything that's got a trigger to it. I don't
Uh,
think
no,
Junebug,
I'm just
you
waiting.
want to speak?
Sorry, let you finish speaking. Sorry.
No, you know, I'm gonna land here. Like I don't know. I think there's something to be said about ways in which these conversations, from a more like honest, holistic space, can be made more accessible. But that's really it.
So I kind of took it differently. Days, if you don't mind, when you were reading out the books, I actually opened my notes and wrote down all about love. I'm familiar with the Issa Rae book, so I knew that I was going to be able to find that easily. Do you mind repeating the third and fourth book that you mentioned? Yeah, again, woman, I have the list right in front of me because I'm forced to read. Um,
Hmm.
Here we go. All About
Hmm.
Love, New
Hmm.
Visions by Bell Hooks. That's very prominent in women's studies.
Hmm.
And then we
Hmm.
had the Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. Of course, you already
Got
know
it.
that one you just stated. That was Issa Rae. Then we
Hmm.
have The Sister Outsider, Essays and Speeches by Audre Lorde, which is Audre Lorde, Lorde. And then we have More Than Enough, Calming
Hmm.
Space for Who You Are, No Matter What They Say by Eleanor Welthor. And then we have Hood Feminism that I could have actually added, but I
I've heard
didn't.
of that one. Yeah. Well.
And there's another book that I was given. Hold on. Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. And then where's this other one on this list? Gabrielle Union has also a book. It's called We're Going to Need More Than Wine, Stories That Are Funny, Complicated, and True. You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
What's
And it's
those
really, and if
female
I may,
books?
if I'm, are they female books? Is that what was asked?
What's such
What?
when's
Yeah,
I'm sorry, when did authors
Uh,
become female books or masculine books? I'm
because
confused.
because because that's I think that's the air that I noticed, and it's cool. But I appreciate you for sharing, and I wrote them down, and I'll mute up
And
now.
I'll be completely
I have a
honest with
question
you,
in
I
regards to
Junebug.
these
just
I'll
want
say
to
books.
this. A
briefly
lot of the
miss.
authors writing these particular books are not male authors, and I do apologize because many male authors are not writing on these particular books because they're not doing women's studies. Most of the people taking these courses are women taking these courses, therefore they're going to edify and write said books.
so those are female
So,
books.
so no, hold
Sir,
on,
good,
no,
you know what?
just hold
Enjoy
on
your
real quick,
day. I
man.
do not argue with
I'm
cantankerous
asking a
beings on
question.
Clubhouse.
I did have a
Well,
question though, Missy.
go
Like,
ahead if you want.
considering that the conversation is about black manhood, so to speak, why did you present books that really
They
are coming
said
from
it's a
female
bunch of
authors
books
Because the
teaching
reason
bitches
so
why,
how to be
okay,
single.
Mel, I did not know
no,
your name was
I wasn't
Missy.
addressing you,
Day as a
dog. I was
Melissa.
talking to
So F
Missy.
Young to
Thank
answer
you.
your question. Here you go,
They
babes.
said it's a
To
bunch
answer
of
your
books
question,
teaching bitches how to be single.
Curtis. Oh wow,
Curtis,
nigga,
could
shut
you
the
could
fuck
you mute
up.
him real quick, please?
So what I was stating was, yeah, because y'all like me to get niggish on the stages, and I don't do that anymore. But I will tell you to
Just
shut the
yeah,
fuck up.
just work through it, Messy. Go ahead.
What I will say is there was a statement Curtis made, and he stated that
Due to the fact that these conversations are usually coming from the context of women stating that they're staying towards black men and these gender wars that we're having, he sits in these rooms and hears these conversations, and I too can co-sign this. I hear a lot of women weaponizing certain experiences, their experiences, and making it seem like it's a generalization that said men are declining or are problematic in our community when they too also play a role in lack of accountability in these conversations. So that's why I brought those books forward, is not to just go ahead and pigeon misogynoir or misogyny or whatever else you guys like to go ahead and censor instead of trying to get the information and go ahead and read something. And I'm done speaking.
Okay, thank you. So it's just to have a more holistic view of the conversation for perspectives one.
That's what I assumed she was
Yeah,
contributing
I was
to. But
contributing.
but
I
yeah,
was not
but I
trying to be of
assume everyone
malice
who's speaking
intent.
in this room is
yeah,
doing the
yeah. That's
same.
why. That's
Yeah.
why I actually asked. I usually don't ask questions to the intent not speak. But
But I was, oh my God.
Go
but
ahead, Dante.
like
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I
Go,
feel
go
like
speaking.
Finish.
as
Yeah,
it
go
pertains
ahead.
to like women's role in the conversations of black manhood, like I think we, while they might not dictate and be the end all be all of like what black manhood looks like or just manhood in general looks like, they do play a role in it. Because like the same way that you can't drive a Ferrari and like for off-roading, like you can't drive a Jeep for like just on a racetrack, like on a racetrack like a Ferrari. Like different women are going to gravitate towards different things because people are different. So there are going to be levels to like how women like sort of like play a role in society, and different women are actually going to validate your functionality as a man in society more than others. So like it's there's more nuance to it than just them being the end all be all, and vice versa. I think we have to allow room for flexibility in that conversation, because what Dante might think is manhood might not be what I think is manhood. Dante might be perfectly cool with being an asshole. I might be more on the side of things where it's like I'm more particular about what I say to people, even if I feel a certain type of way. Like it's different. It genuinely is different strokes for different folks. When it comes to like our functionality as men, like that might be a conversation that does need to be had. But like in regards to like how we define manhood, part per se, like there's levels to it, and I think that it's good to at least hear the different perspectives of like how people view manhood, just to have it as info for your back pocket, so that when you
Exactly.
encounter men like that, you actually have a better understanding of why they move that way, or you understand how to navigate with them, or what role they actually can play in your life.
And I was gonna say, I think it was a great point, but I also think that everyone can synthesize what manhood is in their personal journey. But that doesn't mean that you don't create a standard, because in many ways, your conception of manhood derives from that standard, from that approximation of objectivity of what it means when somebody says manly or manhood, right? And so you kind of develop your sense of self from your interpretation of the standard, from that objective pillar. Like it is important that, like, 'cause, like you talked about some of your personal character, not you, but like you may be an asshole, right? You could do that in spite of the standard, not in place of. You know what I mean? Like you can say, I know I am this way, and I don't think that this should be universalized or this should be integrated in what it means to be a man. Like I am being this way because this is how I choose to be. And you know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that you want it to be part of the standard just because you operate a particular way.
You might be moving that way because you actually find a problem with take issue with the standard. But but that's the thing, when you go and sort of flatten the concept of like this, like when you flatten the concept of manhood to like just a just a baseline standard in regards to how men are supposed to move, it gets real. I don't know, it gets stupid real quick, to be honest with you. And
It's a
I think it sort of it makes it so that like people can't actually unpack it. It makes it so you can't address different nuances of things or even be able to evolve in the way that like Dante was speaking on earlier.
Man, it seems to be
Because
chaotic
like
if you're
when
a
you
cult
when
community. Like, how do you instill values within the people, either in your household, or in your immediate community, or,
I
like,
mean,
you
yeah,
have
if you're
to
talking about
have a
immediate,
standard.
if you're,
Go ahead.
yeah, if you're talking about immediate community, though, that's more on a micro level. From a macro level, having a, like, just that, like, we have a stage full of people from multiple different walks of life. Me having a Nigerian father, Dante being from the West Coast, Curtis having Caribbean lineage. Like, like, we have people of multiple walks of life speaking on manhood based off of different examples and also different observations of how their fathers have evolved over time if they had their fathers in their life or if they've had men in their lives. So when we talk about it from a high level, sometimes having that baseline standard to go and say, oh, that's not manly or this is manly, it can be sort of an issue because there's different levels to manhood and there's different aspects of manhood that really function in different arenas for different times. And sometimes people aren't going to be stepping into those arenas. Like for example, I'm just going to use the Kendrick and Drake beef as a prime example. Me as a hip hop fan, I was all for it, and I was just like, oh yeah, like that's dope. But like when J Cole apologized, everybody was like, oh, you ain't supposed to do that. But like as a man or as an adult or as somebody who's a little bit older who has wisdom, that was actually the smartest move you could make. Like just because it had nothing to do with his ability to out rap Kendrick or anything like that. It was like, yo, I don't feel like beefing or going to blows with a person that I genuinely rock with. And I see this going left. So I'm bowing out. Like some people wouldn't say, oh, that's sucker shit. But other people are like, that's pretty wise. And I remember like just hearing, like I was like listening to an interview with Elisa Deek, just sort of talking about how usually like when people have issues like that, they handle it on the back and they don't do it in front of people. So like there's different ways to move in certain situations
I,
that like when you go and flatten it to like one standard, you're not really acknowledging or addressing the value behind certain actions that might go and like spit in the face of what the general public or the macro status quo is.
So
yeah,
Effion, you said something so like major, right? And we've skipped over it. Like the definition of manhood to a man that had his father is going to be vastly different than the definition of manhood to a man who did not grow up with his father, right?
Correct.
So just that simple nuance, and I don't say simple in complexity, but simple in that one thing, right? Can create an entirely different standard on two different sides of the spectrum, even though we're looking at it as a sphere, right? So that's just 2 points on on the sphere. And so this is why I was saying what I said earlier. Like there's no one definition and standards, even then there's I don't even know that there's really a baseline really anymore that you can say, because some of the baseline things that were mentioned were just things about people being human, right? Being accountable.
Hmm.
Accountability should be a human thing, not a man thing. As a woman, I don't get to absolve myself of being held accountable, right? Like, so I think that I appreciate, well, let me just say this. I appreciate your stance on the conversation. And like, if we can truly acknowledge that depending on where you came from, what kind of upbringing you had, your definition of manhood or womanhood for that matter, it's just going to vary. It's going to be different. My
Hmm.
son is 20. He still believes in opening doors for women. Like when he's home, I don't touch doors at all, right? He's always there. He gets out if it's raining and opens my car door, right? Like so, but that's him. I cannot expect another 20-year-old to approach that situation like that. And my son doesn't just do it because I'm his mother. He does it for any woman whose presence he's in, right? But that was his upbringing. That was the way that he was raised because his father was raised that way. But that's not the standard across the board for all 20-year-old men. It's just not, especially not today. So we can't, it would be highly disingenuous to boil this down into one definition, because then that would speak to men being single-sided and you all are such multifaceted and nuanced humans that you should not allow yourselves to be boxed in or be held to a standard or expectation that somebody else set for you that they don't have to live themselves.
Because then you're
But
forcing
I
people
thought
to
we're
live a
political
lie.
animals. Well, how then do we find a mate? Like it just mean it would seem
You
as though
communicate. Oh my God,
you
here you
would
go.
have to
Thank
like
you.
I mean so as a parent, right? Like if you teach your son or child
Yes,
these
yeah.
particular values, you would expect that they are commensurate to the society that they're in. Like that this will get you ahead or what something
But
in return, right?
Pseudo, you make us sound like rare birds trying to do
Yeah,
some
like,
some
Right.
dancing
but
and
and
like
I
in the
didn't
we know
teach
that
my
rainforest.
gender
son
and
those things
sexuality are not
to
the
get
same.
ahead.
Like,
That's crazy. Like
right.
I taught my son those things because those are things that I value, right? And I wanted to pass those values on. Now at 20, if he decided that he no longer wanted to do those things, then okay, that's on him. He has to live his life, right? So
What
you can't box us into, or I would hate to be the person that is boxed in by other people, boiled down to a singular standard or a singular definition. Like, no, absolutely not.
So what I mean,
Because
like I
then,
guess in the concept of like manners and decency, right? You teach these values that you think will have a positive correspondence or a welcomed reception from the environment that that child grows up in, is what I'm saying. So it's like if you teach them, you know, to
but the
be
thing,
a certain
pseudo, is that we're not all coming from the same environments. And
Thank
again, like
That's
you.
what you're speaking on is
that's why the
speaking more
question
so to a
was so
macro
specific
aspect
that
of
it wouldn't
things.
matter, that it doesn't matter. That's why I specifically asked the question in which I did. So whichever environment is that you would teach your child, would you teach your child manners, practices, habits that are that
Sure.
positively
Yeah.
correspond with the particular environment that they're in?
But
Okay,
that's
got
not
it.
But what's
relegated to manhood. It's
right?
relegated to personhood.
Exactly.
That
I
and there's
Because
never
a
said
and
okay.
there's a deeper level of internalization that y'all are that's coming through in the
Hmm.
lot some of the logic being expressed here, which is like what you're talking about, your example or like the behaviors related to manners and stuff. Is that's comportment, right? That is how you comport in various spaces and places and dynamics and all that type of stuff. That's comportment. And living organisms have to move through environments and they comport to do so in an adaptable and smooth and seamless way, comfortable enough way, in a way that where they will eliminate thread or mitigate thread and all that type of stuff, avoid detection, blah blah blah. So
Hmm.
it's just like comportment, sure, but it's like that doesn't necessarily need to be internalized to the level of character. The character, which then informs identity and how you conceptualize yourself and how you then, or the prism through which you see yourself in relationship to everything else and everybody else around you. You don't need to internalize messages about comportment and like logics about comportment just to navigate the everyday stuff all the way down to the core of your being, such that you show up that way all the time. Like you go to sleep thinking that way about yourself. You wake up thinking that way about yourself. You take a shit thinking that way about yourself. Everything about you is about comportment. It's just like,
Hmm.
again, like that's just such a deeper level of internalization that happens. A lot of people internalize expectations projected upon them, but those people tend to be very dramatic and dysfunctional and very destructive sometimes to
I,
themselves and
I
other people.
agree what you said.
So
I would just
where's that?
add that
Why
I
does that
think
make
that
sense? You know,
I would say I think that they do, I guess, are integrated into your value system.
for
You
some
know what I mean?
people,
Like saying please and thank you. If you get smiles as a child growing up when you do this, or you get your way, you then start to acknowledge the social value of manners,
yeah,
and
there's
so
a
then
reward.
there becomes a
Yeah, that's
No,
right.
neurochemical.
Yeah,
like
That's
we call those
neurochemical.
but
units of recognition, though, right? Like we don't necessarily deem those as like those are things that help create and tailor your identity. One hundred
But that is
percent, right?
neurochemistry involved, where it's like you do,
One
there is
hundred
a
percent,
pattern of
I'm
right?
trying to figure out what
This
y'all
is
talking about at
right.
this point.
Hold on.
being
In that.
rewarded for conforming to
they're
social
they're
norms
This
and
does.
they're
This
yeah.
generally just
does.
speaking
This
on
is why I said like this is why we
socialization.
call those things units of recognition, specifically positive conditional responses, right? Like you did a thing, here's a positive response, right? Like the whole reward system, the same way that we have like the opposite end of it, right? Let's say if like a baby's crying and this is like a negative conditional response. If I cry, this means that someone's always going to come to like a need, even though that cry could literally mean anything, right? But
Okay,
that's again,
psychology 201,
but back to like
period.
This is
Are
the
y'all talking
answer.
about manhood? Or y'all talking about something completely
With
different?
We're about to. I'm gotta go back
first
to
and
They're
this.
period,
they're sort of
the
they're
foundation.
Can
trying
I
to
get
make
there?
it about manhood. Yeah,
No, no,
we're
no.
a little bit off
Can we get?
topic.
So
Can we get?
there's the
We're still
same
on
voices.
topic.
That's what I'm trying to understand.
I promise you, we are still on topic. Just let me land. Thank you. Right. In that, right? The problem with manhood as we know it is that people are receiving positive and negative conditional units of recognition for things that literally just denote personhood. For men, you literally receive negative conditional units of recognition for just sitting too gay, for just talking with too high of a pitch in your voice. Like there are ways in which we define manhood throughout society. This is not a subjective thing, right? I hate that this is a talking point being made because condition like other people around you condition you to understand what manhood it is. It is this violence that is like permeated throughout community. The ways in which you understand yourself as a man are violent to you as a human being because you tell yourself, for instance, commonly across the board, I can't cry. If I get sexually assaulted, I can't go to anybody about that. If I get violated in any way physically, I can't go to anybody about that. And like we act as though like these things are gone, these things are things of the past, but like still today we see so many units in the media, right? Or even culturally within our own communities, like within close proximity and shit like that, like where we see men who face violence from other men and we blame the victim for receiving that violence because that is an affront to their identity as a man. You should be able to stand up for yourself, right? Like you should be able to always defend yourself against these things because at our core, we keep telling ourselves that men are not people. They are men. They should be able to, under any circumstance, handle everything the world chooses to throw at them, and they could never seek care from community, right? Like that is what it means to be a man. This is why I said earlier in the chat, to be a man is to not be human. It is to be ontologically violent towards yourself. It is to view your life as so fucking worthless that you are a separate being from anybody else who deserves the same love and care as you fucking do. Like that is what manhood is writ large. Period. Like I don't get why we keep going back to this whole like, oh, I define it for myself. No, you don't, nigga. Another nigga tells you you act too fucking gay.
Exactly,
Like, let's be
exactly.
honest.
And
I
niggas think like
appreciate that.
So is that the concrete way of doing it? The
niggas think
blueprint, I
that
guess.
because and the more niggas like get success at manhood, right? The more you achieve overt, like I would fucking call it championship in manliness or whatever the fuck, right? The more you
Status.
the more you project, the more you perpetuate the bullshit. Even though you could be ready to
Ascend the
fucking
hierarchy.
blow, yeah, you may be ready to blow your fucking brains off your shoulder. You feel me? But you still gonna perpetuate that bullshit onto somebody else. You feel me? Because that's all you got. You holding on to that shit for dear life. It's like these crackers with whiteness. When you think about it, you feel me? Even though that shit could be killing them too. But we gotta let that shit go, man. That shit is not generative. It's not leading us to have great lives, bro. It's not leading us to be able to just be our true, genuine self. I'm not like you. I'm not like none of y'all. I'm me. Why the fuck we all got this same box to fit in? That shit don't make no fucking sense to me, bro. But anyway.
And that's the
Like,
whole point, because I know um, I don't dismiss anybody's idea of black manhood. I don't. If that works for you, it works for you. And as I said earlier, my dad defined it for me. Now, granted, I was in the streets and all that kind of stuff, did some things, but I don't think, now, I won't say it didn't define me. It definitely added layers to me, but it didn't define me. So I don't know. I think that, I mean, sometimes I think in the conversations, I think sometimes we're trying to build the ultimate universal blueprint of what manhood is. And granted, I know Missy was talking about some books, and I'm gonna be real. Some people do need those books because they really don't have a true understanding or defining meaning of what manhood is. Now, if I wanted to, I guess, advance my knowledge on other people's opinions or studies or statistics of what manhood is, I would read those books. I know now, me just knowing who I am as a person, I know I won't do it because so far in my life, it's been working for me. And they say if it's not broke, why fix it? I mean, I think some of us do enjoy breaking things and trying to put it back together, and then we fuck that up, and then it's like, well, shit, how can I get it back to what it was before I start tampering with it? And I think that's a problem in its own right. So I mean, that's why when y'all were speaking, I didn't know what y'all were talking about at first. I mean, I think we kind of went down a different avenue and circled it back to what manhood is. Oh, well, at least in your personal opinion or from your educated opinion, whatever the case may be. But yeah, at the end of the day, man, I don't think no one really can define it for someone else unless they're willing to accept their definition of it. I mean, and like I said, in BK, I know y'all like to break things down to the inner core, put it back together, and break it down because it feels good to you. Me, I don't know. I think there's bigger things to break down. That's just my opinion, but I do
No,
enjoy the
we
dialogue.
no. Some
BK, hold on.
I think sometimes we
Hold
should just stay in the
hold
group
on, B.
and listen.
No, it's
How
not
about
that.
that?
Dante, I
Yeah,
want to
because
respond
Cool.
to
I
yeah,
what
mean,
you
you
said.
got your
he
You know,
doesn't
we
opinion.
can
harm. Yeah, he
edify
doesn't
each
say
Doesn't
anything
that
other.
mean
Hold
accept it
on.
or
disrespectful.
I
something?
don't like
Like,
to
So
scream over men.
relax.
5, 4,
Go
3,
ahead, Missy.
2, 1. All right, like I was stating, we don't have to like nitpick each other for whatever we're edifying based upon education. Somebody can actually sit down and just go ahead and give a reset of what it was said. It was just an observation based from adolescent experience, meaning childhood. Now, as an adult, you're seeing these observations and it's subjective. That's all that was being conversated about. It was just dialogued about in a very broad way, and it made a lot of sense. And I applaud the men that were able to articulate themselves effectively, efficiently, and to have that conversation. I implore y'all so much. It doesn't matter what kind of education you have. It's a matter of did you pick up a book and have that conversation, or are you willing to be in certain spaces and gain other perspectives? Like we stated before in the particular conversation, it is magnified as subjective. Like we're arguing points and opinions and how we observe certain things, but we're not anomalies. We're humans. And Kelly said it best: we're humans trying to operate in a world where we're already putting certain standards and pressures on each other, and instead of understanding each other, we want to quantify each other. We don't have to quantify each other. Just gain a conversation, gain some context, and learn from it. If you don't agree with it, just move around it. You don't necessarily have to be argumentative, combative, nor cantankerous to get a particular nuance of a conversation. And you really don't have to be at a reading level. There's audiobooks, because I know there's been the conversation of, well, I'm not going to read a book. Okay, well, we sit on platforms all day and we want to blame social media, but we're here having a conversation. Nobody has cussed each other out. Well, I did earlier. Excuse me for that. It's just a matter of what are you willing to subject yourself to, and when are you going to take responsibility and accountability for the things that you're willing to listen to? Because I could listen to men all day, and that's because I'm willing to put aside my own demise and issues and indoctrinations to have conversations. And I think a lot of times we're not willing to put our feelings and emotions aside and use regulation of self and emotion to have said conversations. Instead, we want to nitpick what somebody's doing or saying. And that's all that I see as a viewpoint. He was just edifying the conversation, and for those of us that got it, okay, cool. For those of us that don't, sit back and let it be had. It's simple as that. And I think a lot of times we spend so much time on the behavior aspects and the conversations don't go as far. A conversation that would have took 5 minutes takes us a whole fucking hour to have, respectfully. And I'm done speaking.
So I got a
so,
question. Well, let me
Curtis,
hold on.
that's okay. Go ahead.
Go ahead, because I want to get Lawrence in there. Then I have a
Oh, okay.
question for the room.
No,
Lawrence,
I
you
was just
there? I
gonna.
want you to.
Yeah, I was gonna just let Missy know.
Yeah, I'm here.
You know, I'm not coming at you uh, disrespectfully. I was just giving an opinion based off of my opinion. You know, I don't
Dante, I
disagree.
know that. You would never.
Yeah.
You couldn't. Yeah, no. I don't
Okay.
have
I
to
just want
take
to make
anything you
sure
said
we was on the
personally.
same page. That's all.
No, I'm in the season of growth. I'm not in the season of holding grudges. People are gonna
Oh, okay.
talk.
Cool.
I'm not gonna sit here and nitpick what the shit people come out of people's mouth. I mean, it flush. Just yeah, nah. You're good in my book.
Okay. All right. It's all. I just want to make sure we were good. That's all.
Did you say flush? I'm screaming.
Go ahead, Lawrence. What's up, man? What's your take on the
Yeah,
title? Then I have a question for the room.
sure, sure. Hey, Curtis. So I think before we can uh, determine whether or answer the question whether black manhood is on the decline, I think we first have to understand what the definition of a man is, right? So, Dr. Nahim Akbar, former head of clinical psychiatry at FAMU University, Tallahassee, Florida, wrote a book many years ago called Visions of Black Manhood. Certainly, there have been some follow-on volumes, and he's updated the book since then. It's a paperback, very easy read. I think that if all women had this book in their purse, you would know what you were talking to the moment the brother opened his mouth. For you brothers who are raising young men, it is also helpful. That said, Akbar states in his book that there are three developmental stages of a man: the male, the boy, the man. Males operate on the basis of lust. I want what I want when I want it, and I don't care what you think about it, right? Furthermore, males lack all knowledge and all discipline. As I'm describing these personalities, understand that the male personality has its place when you were an infant. Infants don't care about how their mothers feel. When they are ready to poop in their or pee in their diaper, then that's what they do. When they are ready to eat, they cry and cry and cry. They don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 5 in the afternoon. You have to feed them, right? That's lust. Males operate, again, they lack all knowledge and all discipline. Again, that's relevant when you're an infant, but not when you're 20, 30, 40 years old. The next developmental stage of the man, and Akbar states in his book, Visions of Black Manhood, is that of the boy. And the thing that separates the boy from his male, boys have discipline, but they lack all knowledge. Boys have enough discipline to know that dinner is served at 5 o'clock, what time school starts, what time it ends. You go to the bathroom and the toilet. You respect your elders. They have discipline, but they still have no knowledge. Knowledge of self, knowledge of the world, history. They lack knowledge. The last developmental stage of a man and how a man is defined is knowledge plus discipline at the same time. At the same time. So if we follow the line of thinking that a man is defined as knowledge plus discipline at the same time, and then we ask the question, is black manhood on the decline? Well, is education on the decline? It is. Do we have lots of young black boys reading at a fourth grade level, but yet they're in high school? We do. Uh, is knowledge and the reading of books on the decline? It is. So I would argue that, unfortunately, although there are lots of wins and lots of great things that are going on in our culture, the manhood part, unfortunately, is on the decline. I think that it can be fixed, but it is currently on the decline. I'll stop there.
So, Lawrence, a question for you to follow up with what you said. Do you believe that manhood should be individualized, or should there be like this universal standard of manhood? Because it sounds like with this book, with this piece, and I appreciate you breaking it down. It sounds like there's this process that men or y- there's this process that males go through to reach manhood, which is this pinnacle like standard. So do you believe, in your opinion, is that the answer, that more young men, young males, boys, however we want to define it, they have to work their way up to this goal based on the book?
I absolutely believe that 100%. That said, to Kelly's point earlier, there's a common sort of uh, sort of behavioral structure across the board that we all follow. Some of it is based on biology as a man, and some of it is based on learned behavior. I'm not going to argue percentages necessarily, but that is the case. And I think the learned behavior certainly has a cultural component to it. I think that said, yes, Curtis, there is a responsibility that we have as elders, whether that is defined as grandfather, father, brother, uncle, whatever the case, to bring young men along to ensure that they are both educated, number one, and they possess a level of discipline. But to what Kelly said earlier in regards to fitting someone in a box, each man has his own personality and his own way of seeing the world. But that doesn't mean that knowledge and discipline shouldn't be present in all of us across the board.
So I got a question to the room. I appreciate you, Lawrence. Um, how can I frame this? So is the solution for men to pursue manhood, like should men pursue manhood like they should individualize what manhood means to them, and even if it's not conducive to the collective? Does that make sense? So should a man pursue manhood in his own way, even if it's not conducive to the collective? Should he still pursue it?
Okay, I'll take a stab at this. I think by default, if manhood is not conducive to the collective, absolutely not. You should not pursue it. Because it is all about the collective. It is all about the community. It is all about that 100%. So no, you should not pursue it.
I just think that
I am in confusion. I'm sorry,
I,
June, but go ahead, baby.
okay, so there's more people in the room than before when I mentioned this. So I mentioned this before, and I think I posed the question to Curtis earlier, and then I think I made the statement. So I'll just make the statement. Um, I'll pose. I just think it should start on the end. I kind of I disagree with Lawrence actually. I know I'm a woman, but I think it should start on the individual level, and then the man should build their community and things based on like-minded. You know what I mean? Like-minded individuals or value systems and things like that, and build from there. Right? So he. Mm.
Nah,
But
that's where you
Jumba,
went
people have
wrong because that assumes we have a personality, and what they keep trying to tell us and convince everybody is that
I'm
we don't have a
sorry.
personality.
but
So I'm saying where you went wrong is you assume that we had a personality, and what they keep trying to tell us is we don't have a personality. We don't get to exercise in the human agency. We are just automatons who have to perform masculine functions in the world.
Because I'm gonna
Who
keep it
said that?
I'm gonna
nobody
keep it
said
a
that.
buck, right?
No,
If
Yeah, nobody
no,
nobody
no
said
it,
that.
the
it,
man's
it,
word is
it's
Jumba,
supreme.
it's
hold on.
implied, Curtis. It is
No, 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 no,
implied.
no.
So
I was listening. No, no, no,
Watch
no.
your
I
goose,
was
Curtis.
listening. Hold on, hold on. I was listening. Basically, what I
I've been
got. Hold on.
okay. Let me mute
Hold.
up.
I'm gonna pass it to you. I promise. I'm gonna pass it to you. I'm a few seconds, right? Basically, what I got from the conversation so far is that men specifically, should figure out what manhood means to them. First of all, we covered personhood, right? Like having these intrinsic values, which I agree, that incorporates like personhood, right? So now we go into manhood, right? And what I got
No,
was,
it's not
can I
how we go.
finish? Oh no,
Baby,
hello?
if this is what manhood is, I choose to be single. A man must think for himself, build the
Right.
vision that he wants for himself and the family that he
That's an
wants.
individual.
Oh
Junebug,
my
hold on.
God. What?
Isn't
Junebug,
that
would you let
A
the
man is still.
moderator? Would you let the
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm
moderator
sorry. I'm sorry.
speak?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, y'all. Go ahead.
No, Kurt, finish your point, man. You gotta own your room, dog. Come
I've
No,
on.
no,
never
it's
seen a mod
be a
regress a
man,
room so
Curtis.
quick.
Like I'm
Yeah, man up,
no,
Curtis.
because
Sorry
y'all.
for interrupting, Curtis.
No,
I'm so sorry.
no,
I'm
I'm very.
sorry for
First of all, I'm
interrupting you, bro.
very.
We were
It's
I'm
actually
okay.
having a
I'm
really good
very.
conversation.
sorry. I'm
you're
sorry.
not
Well,
displaying.
you need
It's
discipline and
okay.
knowledge, Curtis. That's what you need.
Can I insert
It's it,
myself real
it's
quick,
it's
Curtis?
interesting. I'm trying to speak and people are. It's
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
it's okay. It's okay. First of all, I'm very comfortable in my manhood. Right. I'm just saying, based on what I'm listening, Junebug, you made the point of that man defining. So that's a very individual. That's an individualized journey, right? So what I'm asking is, if that man is pursuing whatever manhood means to him, and if it's not conducive to the collective, let's say, For example, he doesn't want to have a family. He doesn't want to get married. Doesn't want to have children, right? And those may be poor examples. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just saying if he's doing his thing and he's saying this is what manhood means to me, and it's not adding to the collective, should he pursue it?
But why is the assumption made that him pursuing what manhood is to him is not considering family? I'm not saying that he's not considering family. It's just that it, people have a family. The family unit is like a, I don't know. I just think I just see it different. I don't know. I just maybe I just see things differently. I'm just not able to articulate it. But I, a, a man is a leader of his house. Yes, the leader of his house is going to make decisions based on how he sees
No, a
fit for
man
that
is
house.
a leader to himself. Remember, he's doing what he wants. No?
But
But there's
Curtis,
men that consider their family and their legacy being an influence to society. You know what I mean? Like
Curtis, what is your standpoint? Like,
I'm
where are
con-
you standing
I'm
right
am
now
I
in this
if I'm not
conversation?
if I'm saying
No, you're
something left
fine,
y'all.
Junebug. You're fine, but
Junebug, you're right. I
he's standing at
just
multiple vantage points. Like, what is your standpoint, Curtis? Like, commit. At least, what is your standpoint, perspective, in relationship to what Junebug is saying right now?
My position is I think when it comes to these conversations on this app in terms of holding men accountable and people are projecting what they believe, and we just got to be honest. A lot of us do this. We all do it, right? This is just my opinion. I think we project our standards on people. Just baseline right there. We project our standards on people. Now, when it comes to men, both on men's side and women's side, we project the standards on people we don't know. We give our opinions and we project these social standards. And this is why I made the room because I wanted to see where people are coming from. But from what I've gathered from this space is that no, it's this individual thing. So I'm like, okay,
That's
and
So,
it's
not
these
what
linear.
people said.
Can I
That's
finish?
not what
Can
people.
I
But
finish?
that's not what people said.
But you guys, hold on. But you guys presented books, which I appreciate, which brings different perspectives, right? Yes or no? You guys did that,
yes, books
right?
among other things.
So,
Missy,
right,
aka
right.
Gay, has brought
So,
different books, and I even edified a
from
chat because
human
some people
beings,
decided to
hold
be
on, Missy,
crazy.
hold on. From human
Okay.
beings, hold on. From human beings that have their own opinions and their own standards. Yes or no?
Yes, and that was the
So
point
right
of
now,
my bringing these books forward.
Okay.
Yes, people are going to be
I am
subjective. Yes, people
okay,
are going to have their own perspective. Yes, people are going to see different standards. And yes, I
right?
gave
So let
some male
me. So
perspective. Hold on, here it is. And I also gave some male perspectives in the chat. So, because I got bombarded with, well, all these women writers. Okay, so I gave some male perspective. And I'm surprised no one screamed, why did I give James Baldwin, the gay guy, as an example? But here we are. We're having this conversation. And I will just say this: it got confusing towards the end. Lawrence, no shot at you. You know I love you tremendously. It's no personal intent. It was just like I was a little confused because how should a man not pursue manhood when you're supposed to work on inner self and talk about healing and grounding and all this other stuff? And some of us read the Bible and some of us read the Quran, and it give us pillars of how to become a man and how to be a woman. And then we're not stating that we're not supposed to pursue manhood. That's what had me in a bunch of confusion because I'm like, huh? Like I'm confused. I'm just sorry, Curtis. Go ahead.
so basically, what I'm getting to ultimately is a man's pursuit for manhood. Is it individualized? Is it a social standard? Is it a little bit of both? Like, what is
what
it?
is your answer to the question, Curtis? Because you asking us like you actually don't have an opinion or a perspective
I
on,
do
like you
have.
haven't answered the
I've
question for
shared.
yourself.
I've tried my best to.
Yeah, but no, you
So then,
haven't. No, you
Why?
where
haven't.
can we go from
Why?
here? You've
I mean,
Like,
y'all can't just be hopping off mic like
right?
school
Like,
children and
so
think
then,
that like
okay,
you're
well
gonna
then,
have a
right?
respectful conversation. Like
Right.
well,
you
What's
can't
going
sit here and
on?
act intellectual and get on Curtis for attacking or having a
well,
certain line of
it's
questioning or having a certain way of navigating discussion, but then you guys are doing a poor job at actually engaging in conversation as well. Like,
I
come
think
on,
it's
let's regulate
Right.
ourselves a little bit, Kurt.
well,
Let's
let
regulate
me tell
ourselves a
you,
little bit, please.
I can tell you what's
Yeah,
actually
y'all
happening.
need
I think
discipline and
shut up,
knowledge.
Jaeger. So I think what I can tell you is happening with BK and myself for sure is there's a rhythmic thing going on where we're both tenors who have like a sense of tone and timing and blend. And I think we both are listening and tracking the same rhythm of the conversation and come off mute because we recognize the pause point to where would make sense to flow into to flow and response. Because call and response, A and B is the culture. So I think that is part of what's happening. It's not like a impulsive jump off mic because we can't contain ourselves. It is a we're tracking, we're listening intently, and we are fully in the flow and in the rhythm of what's happening. And we see the logical pivots and we see the logical points where it would make sense to offer something. So I think that's what's happening, but it's not intended to try to stampede somebody and act like some wildebeest because no, we all are better than that, and we enjoy listening and speaking to one another, which is why we know each other and have rapport and respect what each other has to say. And I think Curtis, part of what you said to me is I mean, and not to like scold you or anything, but just to be honest about like kind of just the experience of being in this conversation. Like you expressed, being interested in hearing where people are coming from. But my question has been, and I think what I've been wondering is like, well, where can we go next? Like, if we understand your perspective, we accept it, we take it. Is there another step we can take further into the conversation? And if the answer is no, you just wanted to bring us here to see where we're coming from. You're not necessarily trying to get us to go nowhere else. You just want to kind of present the kind of like the thing on the billboard. Here's the billboard or the cultural message. Let's all kind of gather around, look at that, talk about what we think in this space, but just focus on this thing because as far as you can tell, this thing is not changing. And whether it is or isn't, this is just the thing you want to talk about in this way. And it's like you aren't interested in trying to take it a different direction or deconstruct it at all. You kind of just want to see how people are responding to it as it is and leave it unbothered. It's like if that's what it is, it's like okay, well, there'll be a parking here at the drive-in movie theater as long as we care to stay and look. You know what I mean? It's like all right, but it's just like I think there's a yearning to want to flow and to keep going because we're people who enjoy going and exploring and pushing and learning and expanding. So it's just like can we expand beyond where the conversation typically starts and stops for most people?
So
We
is it, hold
mm,
on. So hold on. So is it genuine? This is my response to that. That's what I'm trying to do with the questions that I'm asking. But it seems like, and I could be wrong, not saying that I'm right here, but it seems like when it comes to these conversations of dissecting things, it's like people want to dictate where the conversation, people want to dictate where the conversation should go. Like there's this, I guess we personalize it and we project what we want, we want to see how we want to see how the conversation goes for us because a lot of times it will benefit like our position. So I hear y'all, I hear the perspectives, but if and I have to look at myself in the mirror with this, right? Are we saying yes, let's see where this conversation go sincerely, or is it let's have the conversation go where we want it to go?
Let's
See,
just
there's
see
a
where the shit
difference.
go. Let's just see
Can
where it
I say
goes.
Wait,
this real quick, Saint and Junebug? So, Curtis, I think where the errors happen, and I'm not nitpicking, is you ask a question, but you're not asking the why to explore that particular question. Hence, why Junebug was like, "Yo, I'm in confusion," and I made my outburst and like, "I am in complete confusion. How is it that so that we are talking about manhood and men should not pursue manhood? How is that possible when you grow up as an individual and then you have to go through a healing process before you, well, I think this is the proper protocol. I don't know proper process of like preservation, understanding, getting a certain spirituality discipline as an individual, have pursue a certain mechanicism as a man in life, and you have these pursuit of happiness, and then to then say, well, you should not pursue to become a man, but so you're saying that a man should be an adolescent to the day he dies is like that's where your response should have been like, hey Lawrence, what did you mean by a man should not pursue manhood or a grown boy? I don't know how else to put it because I see a man as a man and a child as a child. How is it that you grow and mature as a person physically and your intent mentally is not to pursue manhood? Make that make sense if we're talking about
But
manhood in space.
that's why I asked him that follow-up question. See, I asked him, wait a minute. So, and I summarized what he said because he broke down the stages. And then I ultimately asked him, I was like, well, do you believe personally that it's this process, it's this stage, and it's this ultimate standard that all men should apply to? And he said, yes. So to him, that's his view of manhood. His view of manhood is this process, right? It's this growing up process, right? And I'll concede that yes, there's healing, there's all the stuff that you're saying, but ultimately his point was that all, in his opinion, all men should be going through this process. He broke it down based off of the book, and he ultimately said, like, this is the standard for manhood. This right here, this is the top. It's like it's an actual thing. You could look at it, you could read it. It's right there. That's basically what I did. That's basically what Lawrence did.
Curtis, that's not what was
So
going
he
on.
offered
Like,
us a
BK, hold
paperback
on, hold on.
book that's
What
But
we
you
got
guys
20 pages.
offered
was
books
we
too.
got
He offered us a
two. No, no,
But
no.
pamphlet.
I was
That's
not
no.
offered a
This is very
paperback that
different.
was page long from a professor who's no longer working at said
Hello?
institution.
That's not fair.
I'm just
No, no, no,
saying.
no, no, no. No, 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 no. No,
Yeah,
no.
Curtis,
I'm
he
muting
offered
you
you two
all.
words
No,
and you
no,
regressed
no,
the
no.
whole conversation. Like, that's
No,
really
no,
what
no.
happened.
No, no. See, no,
Knowledge
no, no.
and
See,
discipline
now
was
this is
all that we
biased.
got.
This is biased. This is biased
No, Kurt,
because
stop. Because the
nobody.
author,
No, 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 no. Nope.
yeah, Kurt said,
Nope.
All
Y'all
it took
giggling
was
and
two
laughing. I'm
words.
talking. I'm talking. Now I'm flexing because when you guys,
Is this
when
being
you
a black
guys,
man?
that's right. When y'all laughing, y'all know it's true because when y'all presented these different books, there was no pushback. There was no, these are paper. No, 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 no. But he presented another book, and because I guess the context of the book you guys don't agree with,
This is
now
some
it's oh,
bullshit.
right. So let's be fair.
There was literal pushback on every book that Missy mentioned. Like, what are we doing here? There was major
Who
pushback
pushed
on it
back?
because they
I
were
didn't
oh,
push
it was
back.
they
just that
were
Black
Mel
man came on
weirdo.
stage
yeah.
and was like,
It,
why you
what?
offering a book
We're
about
not
women?
allowed to read.
Y'all over here trying to spin
He
That's
narratives
literally
when
said,
right.
"Why
it
are
was
That's
bitches
right.
literally
You
telling?"
see it,
Like
Effion?
verbatim,
You
he
literally
see
said,
it?
one
"Why are bitches
weirdo.
right
telling men how
behind
to be
his
It
ass.
men?"
was literally one weirdo that we booted out the room. And I went and told him to
Exactly.
shut the hell up because I was actually asking, like, yo, what was the angle at that? Because I know a little bit about bell hooks to know that, like, it is an angle that is an advocacy for black men, but I didn't know about the rest of them. So I was like, I'm just asking why she just went down the line of specific female authors and women that are coming from women's studies. Like there wasn't that much pushback. It was just digging deeper into like the rationale behind presenting those like pieces of literature. Nothing more, nothing less. It was just that one weirdo.
And
Exactly.
And
that's
then the
what we're
one where they could have
doing,
just said, "Hey, Missy, do you have any black authors that are male that you
right?
can go ahead and
And
edify me
that
with?"
was
And
the
you know what
troll,
I
and we
did?
kicked them out.
Yes, and you know what my smart behind it? Before y'all start coming at my neck because I gave female authors, I gave y'all male authors in the chat, and
It
I will
wasn't
give you more
coming at
authors if
your
you like.
neck
If
though.
y'all
I
want
just wanted
sexual, what's that thing
understanding.
called? But hold
Nothing.
on, if y'all good, if y'all want non-binary authors too, I can give you that too. But a lot of times, just read a damn book. Who cares who the damn author is?
I
Honestly, because
I
I don't
have
read
no
some to
issue
curve.
with that. Like it's like I had no issue with it. I was just noticing the theme, and I was just like, again, looking at a title that talks about black manhood, and you're referring to female authors that are talking about women's studies. I just want a clarification. That's not pushback to say that I don't
It
value
No,
wasn't
I
the
don't
women's
think that
studies.
information
was
I
that
said,
pushback.
that
pause. Let me go
that
ahead and hold on, F y'all. Let me go ahead and course correct y'all before y'all start saying I gave books of women's studies. That was not the case. I gave perspective because of subjective perspectives of regards to the conversation. And Curtis has edified a certain point. And I said, let me go ahead and give some literature. I didn't say, and I said, I have a background in women's studies. I didn't say these are women that were talking about women's studies. They were actually talking about men and women interactions in regards to manhood and womanhood. So it's not just subjugated. There just so happen to be women authors. So y'all go ahead and make those connections and made those nuances, and then go ahead and edify me and tell me
okay.
that I was just giving a women's
I
studies list. No, and then I turned around and gave you James Baldwin, which I know y'all cantankerous ass Negroes are gonna go on to tell
I
me,
saw it, and
oh, I'm
I
giving a
wouldn't.
gay
I love
author.
me
Can we
some
get back to
Baldwin.
what
We went and
Saint
read
said
like I
about
saw
the
the stuff that you
bill?
put in the chat, and like my whole point here is that the only person that was giving pushback we kicked out of the room. Nothing more, nothing less. Like it was literally just to have more perspective on why you're presenting the information that you presented. Like I'm just not really down for this narrative that we're over here trying to like dismiss what like just women altogether in broad strokes. That wasn't what happened.
It's not a
I
narrative. This
know
is a
that effing.
clubhouse room.
I
Ain't
just go
nobody
ahead and
listen.
create. I went ahead and edified it and clarified for these recordings because y'all people don't know how to listen nor read. Not saying you, F Young. It's just I don't got time for y'all. I'm not about to argue with people on Clubhouse. Y'all want to argue. I just want to have a conversation.
You
That
know what I
really is
learned
it.
tonight? For, no, what I listen. The only thing I learned from tonight was that Christina Sharp was right. In the wake of blackness, niggas will always hate niggas. Niggas will always hate themselves.
Well, you gonna
Y'all
have a
hate the
juice
idea of you
box,
being a
Jaeger.
fucking human.
Go get a juice
Hold on.
box.
No, this is my genuine response, right? Because it took one nigga to say two words about what it means to be a man, and now we back. We ain't even back to square zero. We are down to -1. This is where we are. Two words. It took knowledge and discipline to get us here. This is crazy. We had a whole conversation about self-actualization as black peoples, as black bodies, as people trying to explore personhood. And where do we get? We get one Negro who come off the mic like he Al Sharped him, and here we are. It don't make sense.
I think you guys are overreacting because like, to be honest, what he said, it was so fucking basic that you really could, like, I was literally going to follow up and just ask and find, like, just like when we're talking about personhood, it does take knowledge and discipline. So it's like, and not for nothing, knowledge and
F
discipline is
Young, are
something
you
that just
You
okay?
can be a
actualize
stupid nigga and
BK.
still know yourself.
See, you guys are cutting people off. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about because I was getting ready to say knowledge and discipline is something that any functioning adult needs to actually function in society. So it's like when we go and bring things back to personhood, it's like, okay, well, when it comes to manhood, like what's the space that we create for men to actually be themselves in exercising knowledge and discipline about the things that of themselves and of how they function in the world. Like there's ways to move the conversation forward. You guys sort of hop out the window a little bit too fast.
But see, the
Touche.
thing is that when as soon as said person came in here with that line of thinking, then Curtis was on it. He was on it. Yeah, see, and then we ended up getting to the root of why this room was born in the first place, which did not lend to the conversation that we were attempting to have, right? And so all we're saying is if you want to talk about a specific thing, then let's talk about the specific thing. And as I forget who was saying it, if the whole point is to just have that conversation about that thing, that singular line of thinking without moving the conversation forward, then just say that, right? But we've tried to evolve the conversation. We've tried to allow the conversation to bloom, right? And not just remain in this constricted bud like state. Like we wanted it to bloom. And so but we can't experience the fullness of the conversation because it has been stifled and it has been limited. So all we're saying is if you got a specific agenda that you want to like talk about, then let's just talk about that, right? But if you are presenting a topic that is broad and then get mad when we like have a broad conversation, it baffles me. And he just came in here and said God bless him, but that's an old school way of thinking, and that may have worked in his day. That don't necessarily work today. Those same principles don't fully, it's not fully applicable to what we are experiencing today. And I think that we are afraid to live in like the dichotomy. There should be tension in the dichotomy. There's a middle space that we can kind of operate in and function in. That yes, there is some truth to what Curtis is saying, but there's also a whole lot of truth to what Saint and Jaeger and Missy has said and BK has said as well, right? And I don't think that any one side is more right than the other. Like we
So you just
dichotomy.
gonna dismiss me and you're gonna talk about everybody else on stage, huh?
Yeah,
That's,
cut you off because you cut me out, Effion. I'm matching your energy tonight. No, but what I'm saying is we've all been able to provide valid parts to this conversation without being pigeonholed into one particular line of thinking. And I think that it's exhausting. And this is why these rooms end up becoming gender wars and the foolishness that we are experiencing on this app, which is why I don't go into a lot of these rooms because they don't want to have an open and a open conversation that like evolves. They just want to talk about the thing that they want to talk about. And if that's it, then say that, right? Say that at the forefront so that then we can have that conversation and then we can go to bed. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning. Good night.
I forgot
Screaming.
that I'm on the
BK, when are
West
you gonna
Coast.
go back to calling people slaves? Because niggas don't want to
Oh,
be
let's
humans.
not. See, that's
That's
why
all
I
I
told
got.
you the juice. That's why I
Like,
told you the juice
BK,
Y'all
I
box.
need
just
you
over
to
here
go
being
back to that.
What?
salacious as
That
fuck.
is why I
Could you
told you the
imagine
juice
not
box.
Y'all
wanting to
wild.
let people call you human?
Go
How do
get a
you
juice
fight back
box.
against
Oh,
niggas
you
saying you
calling them
deserve
buff?
to be a full human? This is
Get a
crazy.
juice box. Like y'all see why I talk to him like this.
I missed y'all. I
J
do. I
J
miss y'all so
Massey,
much. Y'all know who we go.
Girl, we know.
J
Ah!
Massey, how you doing, Jay? Would you like to answer? I put the question in the chat, Jay. The question that I asked, and I'm gonna close this out because yeah, I'm just tired. Truth is, I'm tired. Should a man pursue his version of manhood even if it's not conducive to the collective? That's the question that I asked. But if you'd like
What are
to
your
answer
thoughts,
that,
Curtis?
uh,
You still haven't
hang
told
on.
us your stance, sir.
I
You real
okay.
slick tonight. You oiled up tonight.
Curtis, they asked you
Oiled
that
up is
question 5 minutes
crazy.
ago, and you trying to go ahead and center Jay Massey to answer the question for you, and then you had I won't name that man's name. You over here answer the question. What are you doing, sir? Before the room ends, we would like to hear your answer. Thank you so very
This
much,
is
kindly. Jay
cannot.
Massey, you now have the floor, Curtis, since you want to troll.
I'm not trolling. I am trying to
Nigga, you
present.
trolling.
I am trying to present. Oh, okay, BK. Are you okay? Like you
Nigga, you
asked
holding
me, are
back a
you
laugh. We can hear it.
okay? Because I am. The word of today is Tuesday. I am flabbergasted. I am really. Jay, please,
And
can
the
you?
fact you agree with what Lauren
He
said,
can't
I'm
save you.
flabbergasted.
Jay
I
cannot
Who
want
save you.
agreed?
Lauren
I
get
was
the
just
floor.
Come on,
trying
Get
to
back.
bring.
quick, did he
What?
BK up on that
Are
babe?
y'all
What
all
Lauren
right?
said
Are
was
y'all
so
okay?
basic that it's like it's not even anything to be mad about agreeing with
Because it's
over.
so
It's just
dumb.
like it was just basic. It was,
It was
it's
base.
like, oh, 1 + 1 = 2
No,
type
one
shit
plus
Look,
when we're
nigga
trying to have a
equals
please,
conversation
nothing.
about
please let
when we're
Jake get
trying to
in
have a
here.
conversation
Stop
about
letting
Please.
like
baby boomers on stage.
Period. They don't have nothing to say about gender. Jesus Christ. Period.
Jay,
Nothing.
Is there a baby boomer
please.
on the stage?
There
Jay
was
Massey.
a little while ago. The spirit
Hello,
the spirit
We
of
Oh,
about to
Satan
hear
was
some
oh,
another
moving.
okay.
older
ladies
slave
and
rhetoric. That's
gentlemen.
what's gonna go. Y'all
Ladies
gonna
and
get mad.
gentlemen, Jay Massey, can we go? Jay, can you go, please? And then we're gonna shut this. It's like I think the moon is out tonight or something. I don't know what the hell is going on. Jay, go ahead, man.
That's funny. Okay. So the question, so that I'm clear, I just want to make sure the question I'm asking is should a man pursue his version of manhood, even if it's not conducive to the collective? So, well, one, I'm just going to say a default yes, but also what I was I'm missing a spot to understand how could one pursue a version that would not be conducive. Here's what I mean. We're at a state to where being able to pursue any version is better than the no version that's currently in existence at my moment. So this is a good, better, best decision. So to be moving in the what's more